I'd like to acknowledge Councilman Billman on Skype from someplace. Where are you, D.C.?
Yes, sir.
Well,
Our nation's capital, yes, sir.
Great, thank you. Well, with that in mind, okay, I'd like to welcome you once again to the City of Satellite Beach. To City Council, this is a special meeting of the City Council, July 23rd, 2012, 6 p.m. Please join me, moment of silence and pledge. And the pledge, I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. And the first portion, agenda items number 1 through 5, will be part of the special meeting, and then 6 through the end will be a continuum of a meeting that we started on Wednesday night, with adjourned from that meeting at a little after 10, and then we'll just pick up those remaining items. But we do want to get the budget and go through the whole budget that the staff has been working on. So therefore, agenda item number 3 is discussion on fiscal year 12-13 budget. And good evening, Ann.
Good evening. Glad you could all come. We've got a nice presentation tonight so that everyone can see the budget. Just an overview. On the 8th of August, we will get into the details of the departmental budgets and so on. So we're going to try to give you an overview, and tonight is also the night that Council sets the tentative millage rate, the rate which they cannot go above, but they can still go below. Okay. This first slide talks about the shows, it represents the property tax calculations for fiscal year 12-13. And we are focusing in, or at least I am focusing in, on the rollback rate of 8.379. And if you notice, this new schedule represents actual calculated amounts on Form DR 420 that is in fact provided by the appraiser's office versus the unadjusted budgeted dollar amounts from the prior fiscal year that we showed at the last meeting. This schedule is going to be used for all future budget meetings, and it's a bit of a learning curve. We're doing things just a little bit differently, but as you can see, using the rollback rate, we would have almost exactly the same amount of revenue as we did last year, minus less $19. So what we would be taking in is almost exactly the same amount of dollars with a reduction in the millage rate of about 1.5%. Now, there's a lot of information on this particular slide, and this shows some of the budget comparisons between fiscal year 11-12 and the upcoming fiscal year of 12-13. Now, you'll notice on the far left where it has the column of revenues, and in that column are the property taxes, the first line, which is in fact the ad valorem taxes. Then the next line is other taxes such as local option gas tax, communication and service tax, and occupational licenses in that line called taxes-other. The next line is, and these are all revenues, franchise and permit fees, and that takes into account building permits, Florida Power and Light franchise fee, city gas franchise fee, waste management franchise fee. These are some of the big ticket items, so to speak, in that category. And we'll go into this in detail on the 8th. The next line is intergovernmental revenue, and that would be items like state revenue sharing, state 1/2 cent sales tax, the pilot program with Hunt Pinnacle, and the first responder program. Those are the larger ticket items there. And then, of course, there's charges for services, which would be some of the program activity fees that we have through the Recreation Center. Fines and forfeitures would be court fines, That's the main category there, and miscellaneous is the investment interest. And then there are other revenue sources there on the last line. All of those, as you can see, all of those revenue lines add up. If you look at the fiscal year 11-12, they add up to $8,855,439. Now, if you look at the proposed budget for 12-13, you notice that that is a lesser amount by $306,394. So there is a reduction there, and that's actually a reduction of about 3.5% from fiscal year 11-12 to fiscal year proposed of 12-13. Now, if you move over to the right, you'll see the expenditures, and again, you have your line items. One is legislative, that would be your city council. The next line is administration and finance. That's another department, administration and finance together. General government services, now that would be for all departments such as electric, phone, supplies, and so on for general government services. Then, of course, police, fire, building and zoning, public works, recreation, intra-fund transfers, and then additions to reserves. And again, the columns are going to add up to be the same as the revenue columns there, again showing a change of 3.5% or $306,394. And when we speak about this in greater detail on the 8th, we will be giving some of the percentages of the decrease in each of the departments there, and you will notice that every department has decreased a certain percentage from 0.4% all the way to general government services of 3.5%. So there has been a decrease, a change to the negative in each of those line items. And the other interesting line is additions to reserves. If you note, and that's at the very bottom, you'll note that that in fiscal year 11-12 was $6,470. This year we will be placing into that account $116,846, which actually is approximately a 1,700% increase. So we are putting more into reserves, and we know that that is a very necessary activity. Now, if you look at all funds, which is below the line there, you will see that there is the general fund for both the adopted and the proposed budget, the Community Services Special Revenue Fund, and the Stormwater Utility Fund, and that is funded by the $65 fee on your assessment. It's a non-ad valorem assessment. The Law Enforcement Trust Fund, the Community Redevelopment Agency Fund, which is funded by taxes from the county and the city through the TIF funds, and that also includes in that line item on Community Redevelopment Agency Fund includes the $35,000, I believe it is $338 that the city, the CRA board and subsequently the city council voted to pay to the CRA fund. And then lastly, the Capital Assets Fund, and that is funded by utility tax on electricity, tax on natural gas, and tax on LP and manufactured gas, and that is how that is funded. And if you notice the change column to the far right, you will notice general funds down about 3.5%. Stormwater Utility Fund decreased significantly, and that is because the Cassia 3 project is being considered as complete in fiscal year 11-12, even though the actual project will not probably be completed, I'm going to say, till about November 1st. So, and then if you look at the Capital Assets Fund, you see that increasing a little bit, and that would be, I believe, Brenda, is that from the 2 fully loaded cruisers? That will be the debt that will be or the lease, I should say, that will be included in this fiscal year. Is that correct? Okay, so that would be for the $70,000 there. Okay, this is a good representation of the millage rate and some budget comparisons over quite a few years, looks like 20 years here. And the issue I want to bring your attention to in not the fiscal year column, but the general fund, unreserved general fund balance, how that has from basically 2004, 2005, it increased, and now it has significantly decreased. So, and if you also look at the millage rate column, you will show that in 07, 08, 08, 09, 09, 10, 10, 11, and 11, 12, the millage rate was going up. Now it's going down. And also with the general fund budget, you will note that again in 11, 12, the general fund budget was larger and has been decreased, or is proposed to decrease, $306,394, and again that's that 3.5%. Now, there are several budget highlights. Number one is that department heads, and I think this is a very significant and rather amazing situation, that the department heads have volunteered to take a 1-week furlough in their positions over a period of 1 year time, and this is being used to offset the bonuses that are noted, and it's essentially a trade of hours and is equivalent at about the cost of about $15,000 for number 2, which is the bonus of 1% beginning January 1st, 2013, that will be given to 53 employees who are making, and I hope you're listening, Mr. Billman, less than the median, and I think Mr. Rhodes brought that up as well, less than $49,500, and the median, according to the U.S. Census, the median household income for Satellite Beach is about $55,000. So we even squished that down a little bit. And these are for employees who have been employed for the city for 1 year or more. And this is basically an exchange. One will not occur without the other. So this is I think, a pretty interesting and a commendable gesture for the department heads to make. And I hope that meets council's approval. Number 3 is the Human Resources and Benefits Coordinator, and you'll see 2 points. Point A is the initial that we had talked about at $52K and so on, and council had actually approved B, which is the full-time 40-hour position without benefits at the hourly rate of $18.67 for 6 months. And that position shall report to the city manager. And I would like to also suggest that I will make an assessment of that position in about 4 months after that person comes in, to make sure that the money is being spent properly. In other words, that we really do need that position and so on. And I hope that will give council some comfort that we will be looking at that seriously, to make sure that that is going to be making a difference. Number 4, is the Public Works part-time administrative assistant that we talked about previously for $13,585 to assist Public Works in the essentials of running their office. Number 5 is the Community Redevelopment Fund, and if you remember, council on the 18th of July voted an additional $35,338 that will be allocated from the city general fund to the CRA fund. And so that is item number 5. Item number 6, the Beachcaster is funded in the budget at $8,000 with the intent that some expenses will be offset with business advertisements. And number 7 is technology upgrades for servers, software, email, internet, website, and other features will facilitate interdepartmental and intra-departmental communication, and that is also included in the fiscal year 12-13 budget in the amount of $54,000. And I know that KPEG had also suggested that we really do need to have these upgrades and the ability to cut down some of the hours that employees are using and to use them more wisely, as we have we will purport to do with this upgrade. Number 8 is there's a total decrease, and I've said this a couple times, of $306,394 or 3.5% in the total general fund budget that would occur, that is proposed to occur in the upcoming fiscal year. And also the reserves, they will increase to $116,846. They actually increased just a little over $110,000. And I do recommend that council approve the rollback rate. The millage or tax rate will decrease from fiscal year 11-12 to fiscal year 12-13, 1.5% to the rollback rate of 8.3979. And again, one of the points is that we are moving over $35,000 from the general fund revenue into the CRA. Had we not done that, we would have been able to move back a couple more notches with the rollback, maybe even minus 0.75. But due to that constraint, I think we've done pretty good in looking at the budget and assessing any staffing needs realistically, and also trying to do our due diligence with the human resources individual to assess that after 4 months' time.
Okay. Well, I thank you very much for this recap. What I'd like to do is bring it back to the council for a discussion on what's been presented, and then we'll open it up for a public comment for agenda item number 3. So, anybody on the council who would like to go? Looks very good. Thank you. You did very good work, you and the staff. Thank you. All right. So, Scott?
Okay, I'll start. Excellent, man. I know that you've only been on board here for about 3.5 weeks or so, and I know there's a lot of information for you to take in and look through with the personnel and staffing and things like that. And it looks like you're doing a great job, working lots of hours, I'm sure. So.
And there's more to do in the future.
I just had a couple questions. Just want to clarify. I wasn't sure some of these. It's glaring under the revenue part. Other revenue sources went from 414,000 to 107,000. A deficit of 307,000. What does that? What are the revenue sources for that it's decreased $307,000?
Year, we did not end up using fund balance, and we also, in the prior year, we have transferred funds over from the Fund 101-644. Remember last week we had just finished transferring over the fund balance from that account? That was part of it.
Under the Community Redevelopment Agency, all funds from last year was 1.461 million, and now it's 1.647. Is that the TIF money that comes in to the CRA? That's generally that total amount there?
CRA.
For the CRA. Under Community Redevelopment Agency, under all funds, we went from last year 1.4 million roughly to 1.6 million. That's generally the TIF money. So with the increased property values, it's gone up, 150,000 or so that's come into
Also using the balance, estimated fund balance from this year, or what is estimated for the fund balance from this year carried over.
We had money left over that we carried over. Okay.
That is not the negotiation budget.
Okay.
So that is to be carried over.
Looking at the millage rates over since 1991 to present, you have unreserved general fund balance. We went, last year we had, or year before, 2009-10, we had 1.2 million roughly in unreserved general fund balance, and then it went down to 605,000. This year we're going to put 116 back in there. So from one year to the next, we went down almost $600,000. Is that potentially going to go to zero anytime soon? Or are we going to? Is this kind of a tough spot to be in by not having a whole lot of money in there?
That's why we're building it back.
Okay, but is 116 going to be enough? I mean, to go down again like it did that year?
one storm,
Not
probably
with the
not.
wise council that, decided to put money into reserves and every GASB 54, the policies that were put into place, we designated amount of money to go into reserves every year. And this was the first year that we had implemented it based on policies that were set by council and GASB 54.
And I think Brenda and I talked about this today, and I said, okay, what is the acceptable amount in reserves? And it's usually at least 3 months, I would say 6 months, and 3 months would be, you figured it about 2.2 million that should actually be in that column to run government if something, happens. So it really should be there as a cushion. Is that correct, Brenda?
So we are slowly building it up, and that was based upon policies that the council put in place under GASB 54.
Okay, that's all I've got for now. What is the reason for the $60K reduction in charges for services in the revenues?
Do you have that there, Brenda? No.
Go back and look at the various line items.
Well, I know that one of the biggest items in that is activity fees that ran about $460K. But again, we don't have the whole budget here to discuss at this point in time. Do you have that on there?
I guess my concern is that we're going to approve tentatively a millage rate, and I don't think we have all the component information. For example, where are we, to date as far as comparing our actual expenditures with our adopted budget?
The main item that went down was program activity fees in the recreation department.
Right.
That went down by 57,000. And then there's approximately maybe 20 other line items that comprises charges and services.
The program activity fees went down?
Yes.
Yes.
Is
That's
that,
an estimate.
Went down about 55?
57.
57,000. See, that accounts for almost all of that column.
is Terry here tonight? She's here. Any idea what happened?
We projected,
Carrie, why don't you come up, Carrie, so everybody can hear?
We projected high this past year. We're not going to make what we thought we were going to make this past year. And the way the program works is what we take in, we do a percentage out, so we also didn't spend as much. So I projected it lower than this past year, and then added another about $10,000, $20,000 even lower than that, just in case we don't meet our income again.
So your projections for the FY 11-12 budget were too high,
Yes, sir.
okay? How do you know that these aren't going to be too high?
Well, they could be, but this year we'll probably actually take in, I think it was 300 and, I can't remember, it was about 20,000, 30,000 less than I thought, and then I lowered it another 20, just not knowing what's going to happen. We're losing our programmer this year, we're reducing some hours, just don't know what's going to happen. I didn't want to anticipate an incredibly high income stream, but that's not going to be the case. I'd rather come back to the council and say, guess what, we did a great job and we're 40,000 over, than I would come back and say, we didn't quite make it.
Would you like to know what the actual was for 10-11?
Right. Okay.
It was $406,730.
That's quite a difference.
Does that take into account refunds as well?
That was the actual activity for that line item that was taken in. Full revenue, audited figures.
I mean, that's about 30% below 33%. Uh-oh.
Below, well, it went up 200,000, I think it's 200,000 more.
Oh, I thought you said they projected 400.
I thought they went up 200,000 from 10-11 to 11-12. Did you
No,
get any more
you
money?
gave me the actuals from
Give you the actual
10-11.
of 10-11, yes, sir.
So the 10-11 actuals were 400K, we'll say, roughly?
406,000 was the actual
Okay.
10-11, and we were estimating for 12-15, 400,000.
Okay.
Okay.
And the adopted budget in 11-12 is 457,000.
Oh.
And I'm not going to make that.
Right.
I'll be real close to 415.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Other questions?
When will we be able to see the components of things like the capital asset fund, and the actual department reductions?
No later than August 1st. Has to be to you by then. Correct, Brenda?
Sure.
I'll let Greg go. I've
Greg?
Greg on a few more questions.
Can you hear the conversations, Greg?
I can hear you, I just can't see you, which is fine.
Okay, you're up.
Okay, thank you. My basic question is, Brenda, I guess, rollback rate means that we are going to realize the same amount of cash or spending money as we had last year, correct? Okay. If we're spending, the way I look at it here, we're spending 13.2% less on the overall budget, 13% less. Yet we're going to rollback rate. So how does that? What am I missing in the equation?
With the property taxes, we would be taking in, with the rollback rate, the same amount of revenue there, but for the general fund, which includes other revenues, and looking at the expenditure, we are actually going to be 3.5, now this is total general fund, which includes ad valorem and the other revenue items that I mentioned. We are going to be at $306,394 less, which is a 3.5% decrease in the general fund from last year. Same amount from the ad valorem, but a reduction overall in the general fund. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I want to commend the department heads. I think 1 and 2 on the budget highlights is very innovative and very selfless, and I think that is absolutely outstanding. Let's see. On the expenditure side of the equation on page, I don't know, anyway, it's revenues and expenditures. Under the police, I had thought that when when Chief Pearson briefed us in the last budget meeting, he had briefed a 13.2% decrease, and what I'm looking at there is a 2.2% decrease. So where's the difference there?
The 13.2% decrease is in the operating budget. That's the not counting salaries, overtime, the 5 things above the line, if you will, if you're looking at the budget. I reduced the operating budget by 13%. We also reduced the personnel side. We took, the reduction there comes from if you take the 90,000 fully loaded detective position minus the records position that we use some of that money for, that makes up that difference. So the 13% is exactly correct, and it's still there, but that percent is in the operations side. What you're looking at is the total for the whole police department, including salaries and everything.
So I guess my question is, what increased in order to bring that 13.2% decrease for the operating budget to only a 2.2% decrease for the overall budget? Does that make sense?
Yes. I don't know how to answer more than the salaries decreased from the position that we're eliminated, less the person that we hired in records. And the operating budget decreased 13%.
Right.
So
but the overall budget only decreased 2.2%. Correct. And that's what I'm asking is what that, why that delta? Why didn't we get the proportional decrease in the overall budget? Is it because are we buying something more? Is there a capital expenditure in there that spikes it?
I don't think there's a capital expenditure in that particular. I don't know, Brent, is there a capital expenditure in that number? Computers. I guess there's some capital there from what Brenda's saying for computers.
Okay. And at what point are we going to get a look at the line-by-line expenditures in all the departments, Ann?
That will be, it has to be into council's hands by August 1st. So we'll try to do it earlier.
2,400.
We'll try to do it earlier, but it'll be no later than that, and then the next meeting is August 8th.
Okay. I like the addition to the reserves. I think that's a good move, and I think that was well done. That's all the comments I'll make at this time, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have, real quick too, I almost feel like you're putting the cart before the horse here. We set the millage rate and then we look at the line-by-line budget items. I am concerned though about the budget highlights. There are some major things that need to be included in the budget next year, including a capital improvement plan, additional funding for KPEG if necessary. We also have to make sure that an attorney is funded, or a line item for attorney fees for when this for the unionization process, which is probably going to be a big ticket item. We also talked and gave direction to get it, our number one goal is community development or business-friendly community, and we need to make sure that that department gets the assistance that it needs. And we directed, I think, CGA to look at that. I think it's shortchanged that department with only 2 people, and I'm very concerned about that because you can't be business-friendly if you don't have the staffing that you need to work with the community. And I don't want to get into all these other highlights, but I think that we shouldn't commit to these highlights until we see the line-by-line budget. I can tell you that a furlough is a layoff, and you need to be careful using that word furlough. Basically, it's pay without, taking time off without pay. I think your benefits can increase, but those folks are also entitled to collect unemployment at that time. So you really need to be careful if we're transferring or folks are taking off to give a bonus to 1% to other folks, that it's worded properly, because furlough is another word for layoff. And I just wanted to bring that up. Again, I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of all the budget highlights that were listed here, but I think we need to discuss all these when we go through our line-by-line budget and make sure that these are we're going in the direction that the council wants to go.
Good points. I thank you very much. The highlights 1 and 2 and staff, and you're all here. Thank you very much for that. Again, as I said, bellying up to the bar like you did 2 or 3 years ago. I do have some questions. Intergovernmental, Ann, you mentioned that those fees come from the pilot program. I was led to believe that because the Air Force is not going to take care of that property, the pilot program is probably going to go away, and those homes are coming back on, or are we talking phase 1, 2, and 3? Is the pilot program still going to be in existence?
It is, isn't it for fiscal year 12-13?
I thought that the property appraiser's office has put those houses back on the tax rolls because they're not military only. Am I missing? Did I miss that? And if I did, that's 100,000. That is different.
Right, and one would, if that's the case, then we'd have to see if the appraiser, what the dollar amount is there as far as taxes is
Yeah,
concerned.
I'd like to make sure that Hunt Pinnacle or Pelican Coast is not part of the property appraiser's ad valorem that he has given to us for 12-13. If it is,
Okay.
the pilot program, I think, would be not in existence.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, and the pilot's about $100,000.
They
Right,
have
it
not
is.
contacted me to let me know. Hunt Pinnacle has not contacted me to say otherwise.
Can we
I
tell
can
what-
contact them and see if they have been
Would
contacted.
we be able to contact the property appraiser's office to see what properties have been included in Satellite Beach, to see if that property has been included?
Yes.
Or not?
Yes,
I think it's,
that's not difficult to do.
okay. The other thing is, on the the 35K, I'm kind of lost on that. I know how that happens. Is that an expenditure that comes out of general fund into CRA? Because I don't see it as an expenditure, and I don't see the 35K. Are we just going to do that in CRA fund? How are you going to show that the 35,000 that's going from general fund to CRA? Shouldn't that be an expenditure?
Split the transfers, and it's in there. It's
Where is it someplace as is it general? Where is it an expenditure from the general fund?
as the interfund transfers.
No, it's the intra-fund transfers?
Yes,
That's the
sir.
35K for CRA?
Yes.
I missed that, thank you.
And also income for CRA.
Right.
I understood the bottom, the all funds, but I didn't understand it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question on reserves. I know that that's the general fund reserve, but there is money in other reserve funds, is that correct?
Yes,
In capital assets fund, stormwater?
yes.
So it's not, I mean, it's bleak, but it's not, but there is some
Oh, yes,
reserve funds otherwise.
yes. They're not bleak in the other funds, no.
Okay, but it's not, we do have to build that up.
Yes.
Again, and you're right on a quarter, you need about
3 months
3
to 6
months
months.
to maintain a city,
Mm-hmm.
which for us, we have figured is almost 1.8, 1.9
Right.
million. I have some other
In
questions.
addition to what we already have.
I agree with Cheryl. I don't know where, we talked about a slot for John Stone's office, and I don't see that as in here. I think we were high on getting that slot. I don't see it at all even being talked about. I don't know, did we decide not to do that?
No, the issue is, and we were kind of chewing on this, there is an individual who lives in the county who is recently retired, and he might be able to, I don't know, do some consulting work. My question is, where are we going to find the funds to do this? And, that is that's a huge question, it's a huge issue. But this individual might be able, because, he does live in Brevard County, he knows the area, he's been with the county as a planner for many years. He actually emailed me and was interested in talking about doing possibly some consulting. that might even be a possibility for something along those lines, rather than necessarily hiring, just like we did with looking at the human resources individual, not hiring someone and paying the benefits and so on, but hiring someone at a reasonable fee to come in and help the department. So that was a thought.
I thought at the last meeting, we directed staff to go out for an RFP for planning services.
Well, that's going to be coming up. But the issue, Cheryl, is that where do we get the funding to do that? And if someone has a suggestion, I'll be very happy to take it to the bank.
Well, I don't mean to be rude, but I believe it's your job to balance the budget, not mine. And if the council is directing you to
I understand
do
what
this,
you're
and
saying.
that's what the community needs and wants are, then you need to figure out a way to do it.
Do you believe, Ann, that building and zoning can function next year with only John and Rob and Tanya? And if not, we'll have to look for that when we get to line-by-line items. I'm just not sure. When we had the other meeting on the 2nd of July, I felt really like we need some extra people. And I just wanted to make sure, and if that's it, we may have to put aside a new vehicle. And I know that's one capital assets, one general fund and stuff like that, but
What would
I'm not sure how we go about finding it, but I just know, do we have to find it? Or can that department
well,
work out a deal like that?
and that is a question. I don't know if, John, you'd like to speak to that, as far as needing the help or what kind of help you need. John had been put in anticipation of the RFP. I'd asked him to put together what type of help he needed, and he was putting together that plan to see what specifics he needed with help with nonconformities or any planning of that nature. So we have been working on that.
Okay.
So maybe you'd like to speak to that, John.
Yeah, hi. Actually, Ann had discussed this planner, and it really seemed to fit in well with what we're needing. Also, there's a lot of challenges coming up, between the nonconformities and some potential rezonings. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff out there, and it's consuming a lot of our time. We're getting real busy right now, and it's just taking more time than we've really got. So a part-timer, I think, would work out very well.
Is there money for a part-timer?
Well, as Councilwoman Deanan said, I'm supposed to find that, so I'm going to find it.
Well, we'll help, but we want to make sure. But you need at least somebody.
Yeah, at least.
This highlight doesn't show anything for.
Right. Yeah, I would say at least 20 hours from what we've identified. We put together, let's say, the beginning of an RFP where it's basically a job profile. Part of that, and where I got a lot of that information was the county. I looked at some other municipalities as well as what planners do. While we've never actually had a planner, I think there's a huge expertise there that we're missing out on. Mm-hmm. Can we support one full-time? I don't know. I mean, we're struggling trying to decide where we're going to come up with one part-time. As a consultant, we have some flexibility there on just how much we utilize that person. I can clearly say that for part-time, I mean, the time is there. We could definitely use them, and like today, it was very difficult just completing all the inspections. And where normally I would have picked up the difference, and code enforcement is getting behind, and so it's a busy time.
And I would like to note too, and I tried to call planning and zoning today, no answer, went right to for probably 3 hours, and I know that someone was on vacation, but there's just no excuse for government shutting down and not being available. One other thing we had talked about is splitting that position between community development and planning, someone with the expertise to do those, so half, majority of that money can come out of the CRA, and they could.
But it can't, Cheryl, and that's the problem. I talked with CGA about that, and that was why we showed that, and I don't remember if it was July 2nd or what, And the issue that they're very concerned about is if you're going to split a position, then 50% from the city and 50% from the CRA. But it's also, you can either do an interlocal, but you have to be very, very careful. And then they said, then of course you can also do a memorandum for services that as you can bill the CRA and so on. But again, the CGA said to me, you have to be very, very cautious about how you do that. So we're going to have to be, very above board on that.
Yeah,
And we
because all
can't-
expenditures by the CRA have to be done very carefully. And we
Exactly.
understand that, but that department or that entity is also going to need assistance. Otherwise, we're going to be hiring a very expensive consultant next year.
Yeah.
Are we, since we have a CRA, and I don't know that we kick this around, do we need to have a CRA director?
Well, if you're going to have a CRA, you've got to have someone doing the work of either managing the projects and deciding, well, council has to decide if they want to do any projects, and Councilwoman Deanan has, and we're looking into that, has asked, well, maybe, and at the CRA meeting on the 9th, it can be discussed whether you want to close the CRA down, and we're looking at the debt and the other, with the swap agreement, there are some real concerns. You can put money into a sinking fund, but you can't just pay off the CRA or you're going to incur a huge interest penalty. So
And
these
I
are some
think, too,
issues.
it wouldn't be a decision for the CRA to make, it's a decision for the city council to make if they want to shut down the CRA.
But what I was getting at, is there money in this CRA fund that if we had to hire a director for
Yes.
70, 80, 90,000, that we, I mean, that's, I'm just throwing out figures, but is that built into this, that if we need to hire a director due to the plan, due to everything that we have the capability in this budget to do it?
There is sufficient funding. There's sufficient funding to do some projects. There's sufficient funding to put money into a sinking fund to pay off the debt. There are a number of possibilities that council can decide on.
And we have that money because it's in the CRA.
That is
We don't have-
correct.
And John's 20 hours is different because that's general fund.
Right. Now, John can bill the CRA for some of the work he's done with the facade program. He can do some billable hours on that if we have a memorandum. I mean, that's something he can do.
And we have 3 facade grants that may very well be coming forward on the August 9th. I'm in discussions with them now, and I've got some preliminary applications in.
And that program shuts down October 1st?
Yeah, September 30th.
September 30th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Better hurry up.
So we could do some of that. I would like us to try and find, I think at least I hear from 2 council members, I haven't heard from the other 3, somebody in building and zoning. I think it's
a challenge.
Well,
John, where do you envision most of the planning workload to be focusing?
Well, a lot of it's in the commercial district. I think
Which is the
that's-
CRA?
Absolutely, that's a very good point. The non-conforming, that goes citywide, but there are a lot of activities that are specific to the commercial and the CRA district.
So it's not unlikely that the majority of the cost burden for a planner would be borne by the CRA.
Correct. I could see, if it could be put in the plan, some cost sharing between those activities in the CRA and those that are citywide.
Any guess on what the percentage?
Well, we're talking a full-time person or a part-time? I mean, I'm saying that right now.
Whatever work there is to be done has to be done. I mean,
very easily, I could see 20 hours just in doing the general zoning and stuff that I'm currently doing right now. and there's
supporting the
stuff I'm going
CRA.
into.
Supporting the CRA?
Well, no.
Supporting the city?
Supporting the city. So if we actually had a CRA person, there's a lot more we could be doing and we should be doing. For instance, expanding the grant program and all the other activities that the CRA is really intended for. They're not being done. And I don't see how we're going to move forward on those without having somebody there to direct those programs. So, I mean, we're doing the bare minimum because we have the bare minimum staffing.
Excuse me, administrative staff
is limited to 25% of the TIF according to Florida statute. Now, planning is not part of administrative staff. I wanted to clarify that, according to code. Okay?
Is that good or bad?
That's bad. That, if you want to incorporate that individual as part of that job, that's outside of the purview of that position.
You can only do 25%.
You would have to hire an individual as a consultant or whatever and then pay them separately. That you cannot encompass that person as a CRA director / planner and pay them within that 25% of the TIF money under Florida statutes. Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay. But you can hire somebody to do planning and pay them directly for their work for the CRA, yes,
Okay, so
From
there's
CRA.
a way to do that.
yes.
Is Councilman Billman, are you still with us, Greg?
No, I can call him and put him in.
Yes, sir, I am.
Whoa,
Okay, do you have, before I go for public comment, do you have any other comments?
No, not at this point, but I'll make one after the public makes theirs.
Okay, and this is agenda item number 3. It's the discussion on the budget. We haven't looked at the budget calendar, and we haven't looked at proposed millage yet. So I'd like to open this discussion for public comment. Please state your name, and you could say resident or non-resident, and you have 3 minutes. Ron?
Good evening, Ron Dragudis, resident. We're here to set the millage rate, which is the most important thing at this point, and I thank everyone for providing this information to us. But we have sources of revenue out there and uses of revenues. My main concern right now is whether the other sources of revenue other than the taxes, which we're here to set the millage rate at, are going to be sufficient for the current year. And setting the millage rate is one component, and please understand you can only go down, you can't go up once you set this upper limit. But I look at last year's statements at 2011, and having worked on KPEG, it concerns me greatly that we went from an original budget to a final budget that went from 8.6 million to 9.2 million. Actual results were 8.8 for fiscal year 2011. We incurred a $653,000 loss that year. I have a lot of heartburn looking at adopted and proposed, because that's not a real number. And I have grave concern about this, not to set the millage rate too low, because we don't know what our revenues are collected, and maybe Brenda does know where we stand in regards to this, but I'd like to hand council, the city manager, and Brenda a worksheet that I came up with that may help guide you make a decision. Unfortunately, it's late in the ball game, but this, it's got to be looked at carefully. And then I go, are we covered for pensions? Have we got the debt service in there? Other post-employee benefits? Any other contingencies? Are we sure we're going to be paying the same amount on the pension? I believe it's close right now, but we are technically underfunded there. And I applaud the AICPA for bringing out GASB 54 for requiring, which I've worked on in the past, for bringing this fact that building retained earnings. So let me hand out these schedules here.
Thanks, Ron.
I apologize for citizens. I wasn't able to bring in my machine today, and it probably would have been a log jam. The schedule basically is a copy of what was listed or posted. I would have hoped that through KPEG we would have been further along as far as line item details, but we are where we are, and let's work through this. As you can see, I'm looking at the general fund. I've got a column here called Actual, 9/30/2011. One of the reasons I was not capable of filling it out, other than having to call the finance department for assistance, and I know they're under the crunch right now for dealing with this, but I'm trying to match the audited statements with the budgets, and there's a little work there to be done, and I think we need to look at working at the budget, stylizing it a little more towards the actual so we can just pull the numbers and not bother the financial department with asking all kinds of questions. And then I go to the next column, which is the adopted final budget, fiscal year 11-12, and that's strictly adopted. And you go to final, which I mentioned, increased by over $1 million. Okay, let's deal with that. I'd like to see a column where guys are looking at this, and this brings a heads up for what has happened through 6/30/2012 actual numbers. And then you can project out through 9/30/12. And even though you're working with a proposed budget and going in a different direction, at least you can kind of see where you are. I think that's critical. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Other public comment? Skip?
Yes, Skip Bollinger, Satellite Beach. I don't want to speak to specifics on the budget because Ron is the knowledgeable guy and I'm not. But there's, excuse me, some of this discussion on the CRA is really disturbing. If we are now considering a CRA director, why did we hire CGA in the first place? I thought we hired them in lieu of hiring another CRA director. Recently, I had to replace the roof on my house, which was a big expense to our limited family budget. But I figured a way to do it. Now, had I been in a CRA, would I have been able to have access to your bank account and your bank account and your bank account to assist me in replacing that roof? Okay, a CRA works the same way between business entities within the CRA. A merchant who normally would not have access to his fellow merchants' funds can, by talking government into creating a CRA and enlisting them to accomplish the theft on his behalf. It may be legal under 163, but it is still theft no matter how you cut it. It is redistribution of wealth on a different level than just using your income tax at the federal level to accomplish the same thing. The concept is the same. I'll close with this saying, he who robs Peter to pay Paul can always count on the continued support of Paul. Okay? If you are one of the businesses who has been benefited by this at your fellow businessmen's expense, you will continue to vote for the people who doled out that largesse to you. I mean, it's buying votes, and it's wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. Vic?
Vic Brungart, former resident of 140 Park Avenue and now interested citizen, non-resident, whatever you call it. Greg, can you hear me okay? He can.
Loud and clear.
Great. I want to just follow up on what Skip said. I don't want us to forget that term theft, because I've said many, many times, not looking at the present council, but going back 25 or 30 years, we've had waste, fraud, and abuse here in Satellite Beach, primarily revolving around the CRA and the misuse under Florida Statute 163. Let me just drop that for a second. Having been a former forensic auditor at Exxon, having about 30 years of accounting experience, I'm not a CPA, I could be, but I've got a lot of municipal and private industry, effectively CPA type experience. Ron's numbers here on the actual versus the audited statements are very important. And let me also say that Ron was right on. Looking at 6/30/2012 versus 9/30/2012, we can come up with some fairly close estimates of what our numbers are going to be. And I, in no way, shape, or form, want to denigrate anything that's been done by Brenda, and certainly Ann is a great person. She's going to lead us right down where we ought to be led. I think what I'd like to say is I'm looking at item 4, set the proposed millage, 5, and I say, man, that's going to be tough to do unless you got all the numbers handy. And I'm a numbers cruncher from way back, financial planner. I just love numbers. This is going to be tough. And I know at the county level, I'm basically operate at the county level, Brevard County level, and it's tough at that level too. But here we need to, tonight, July 23rd, 2012, be very cognizant of where we are, 6/30/2012, where we're probably going to be 9/30/2012, and then look at those numbers as, sure, we don't have finalized numbers, but we can come pretty close to it. And we need to look at the fact that we're going to have to come up with a bunch of money to fund that JLAC study with Pam Bondi and whatever else happens. I haven't been to some of the meetings lately, but we got to fund some past due debts. And those debts are past due, they're payable, we need to pay them. But I would like to close and say, I think the present council is doing a super job. And you too, Mr. Mayor.
Other public comment? All right, at this time, I'd like to bring it back to the council for discussion on the proposed tentative budget.
And we need to set the tentative notes tonight. Right. Okay. Can I ask Ron, since Ron stood up and said a couple things. Ron, we're at this stage where we're set a proposed millage rate right here. There's a cap. Like you say, you can go lower, you can't go higher. I mean, with the numbers you propose to be filled in here, we don't have time to do that right now. So, I mean, you'd have to throw out a number to stick in there. And how do we know what to throw in there? I don't know.
In the past few years, we had a roll forward rate, and we never roll forwarded it all the way that we could. This year, through just some good grace of God, our property values went up, but many other cities went down. The rollback rate, 8.3979, appears to be something that we could propose tonight, because I know, just listening to the council before, we are not going to, the council is not really in favor of rollback rate plus anything. And at least I don't know, I don't want to speak, and that came out at the last meeting that we had. So rollback rate, there are some other numbers to fill in, but Ann does need, and the reason they do this, and we may think that this is backwards, and it could be backwards, you get every line item and then you set the budget, but the state makes you give them a proposed budget and then you crunch the numbers, which is backwards, but I guess what we live, we've never done it any other way. I have usually when I go to the Florida League of Cities on the 23rd of August, that's the first time I get to see every line item. And, but we have set the millage before then, so I'm not sure if it's Ann and Brenda, they're doing everything that they're supposed to do. And then we tell them what to work with, and then they come back with us and tell us what they found. So if we want to do rollback rate, I'm sorry, I know, Ron, I know there's a lot of crunching here. I think a lot of the crunching has been done, we just don't see it all. I'm just, is that true?
That is correct. That is correct. By the way, Mr. Mayor, we need to approve the budget calendar before you set the proposed rate.
Right, we're not going to, I just wanted to talk about this.
Just bring that to your attention.
Well, you know, this, we don't have to set anything on this. We can go to the next agenda item. Is there more discussion on this? Let's, just on the agenda item number 3, there's really nothing for approval.
Right.
Property tax calculation, budget comparisons, millage rate and budget comparisons, and budget highlights. That's all that we've discussed.
Correct.
We don't, so let's go to 4 and 5, and then when we get to the millage rate, we'll come back and talk about these things. Okay, let's look at the budget calendar, agenda item number 4. Ian?
Well, obviously tonight, and you can see the tentative budget calendar for fiscal year 2012-2013. Tonight, council is reviewing the budget calendar and setting the proposed millage rate and the time and place of the first public hearing. And there are a number of different items on here. For instance, August 3rd would be the final date to advise the property appraiser of the rollback rate and proposed millage rate. And then August 8th would be the city budget special meeting at 6. And then August 21st, the final date for notice of proposed property taxes that will be mailed by the property appraiser. September 7th is the first public hearing on the tentative budget and proposed millage. And as you can see, there's a lot more discussion that will be happening on the budget. But you are correct, this is the way it's set up. I'm assuming that's by Florida statute and so on. So this is the way that the municipal and county budgets are done, so.
Now, is this date on the 7th? Is that another special meeting that
That's
we're
the
going to have?
first public hearing on the tentative budget. So that's the first reading then of both ordinances for the trim.
So the 7th, and then when
And
is the
then,
final?
let me see here, the final budget hearing is on the 19th of September, correct. So there are the first on the 7th and the final on the 19th of September.
Is that 2 weeks? Do we need 2 weeks on that?
This is per trim.
Do we need two weeks between public hearings? It's not 2 weeks.
Brenda?
This was approved by trim. We sent it up
Yeah.
Well, Brenda, I just asked you that. I just make sure that it's 12.
I think you are correct.
I think you do need the 2 weeks.
Well, that's per our city code, but this was approved by trim themselves. So they gave us Department of Revenue, DOR, and we sent this calendar up to them, and they blessed this,
Well, most of this, again, is by statute.
Florida
Okay,
statute.
okay, I just want, usually we do that first public hearing actually as the first meeting in September, on the 5th. I don't know why we have the special meeting, because usually in September, all we do is budget. Everything else
Yes.
gets a little bit, so why not do it on the 5th?
Well, you cannot have it any earlier than certain times or later than certain times, and
Says here you can't hold it earlier than the 3rd, so the 5th would work.
I mean, it says you can't hold it earlier than the 3rd. Usually we do
Right.
that right on that first meeting. Friday nights, I don't like Friday night meetings. I'm sorry, I really don't.
and Labor Day is the 3rd.
Yeah. Why don't we do it on the 5th?
Yeah, and this was the,
Can you be ready on the 5th?
Well, we can. Is that going to be a problem with what you sent?
That's your normal, normal
Yeah, it's a normal
meeting.
council, we always do it at the first and the third Wednesdays.
Not in conjunction with your normal, council meeting.
I'm looking to Mayor Breimer, I can't remember. I think we did. We did, didn't we?
At the first budget meeting, at your regular council
And
meeting?
usually in those meetings in September, we do not have much else on, we're not non-conforming site, we're not doing it, we just try and concentrate on the public hearing and the budget. So that's why I was thinking the 5th might be better on that calendar.
I agree. I mean, this is 2 Friday meetings in September in addition to city council. I don't ever remember a budget not going in a regular council during a regular time.
I'd like to, if it's okay with you, I'd like to see that on the 5th.
Okay, September 5th?
Is that okay? Yes.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
All right, so we changed.
August 8th is a meeting and the 5th. All right, is there any discussion on the tentative budget calendar? Greg, on the first public
Yeah,
hearing?
no, I'm fine on the calendar. I just want to make a closing statement on the overall budget when it's time.
Okay, we're gonna have a big discussion on the next one, setting the millage rate. We're gonna change the first public hearing, that's about the middle of your page, from September 7th to September 5th, which would be a regular council meeting.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's going to be a long meeting.
It's
What?
okay.
It shouldn't be.
That's fine.
That's usually a long meeting, the very first one.
Well, but we're not gonna discuss, we're gonna discuss budget. And we'll be
Okay,
addressing
that'll be
those.
fine.
Okay, thank you. This is an amendment that the council needs to approve, so I'd like you to approve it. I think public comment, the dates are set by Trim. We changed one date. There's not many others that we can approve, so I'd like a motion in a second, please, and then we'll press on.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the tentative budget calendar with the change that September 7th Friday be changed to Wednesday, September 5th.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Dean, second by Councilman French. And Lenore?
Councilman Bowman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rose,
Yes.
Councilman French,
Yes.
Councilman Dean,
Yes.
Mayor Palante.
Yes, and that the motion is approved unanimously. Agenda item number 5 is the set proposed millage. And Ann, would you like to restate anything? You're looking at rollback 8.3979.
Right, that's what we're looking at. The other issue, of course, is if we are going to add another position, consultant and so on, we'll have to crunch a little bit more on that, to see what we can come up with and to try to figure out how we're going to do this with the CRA and/or a consultant that will be coming into the Building and Zoning Department. And frankly, we have not accounted for that in the budget.
Any discussion on the proposed millage rate? Greg, you want to go? Go ahead, you've been waiting.
Yeah, thanks. I understand the idea of setting the proposed millage rate. That's something that it can't be increased, but it can be decreased. I got that. But here are my thoughts on the overall budget from what I'm seeing. The only way to improve our fiscal outlook in the city, as far as I'm concerned, is via reduced expenditures. Obviously, the revenue side of the equation is pretty much spent. And I think tough decisions have to be made. And frankly, I don't think that this proposed budget that we're looking at right now reflects all those tough decisions, and I think that work still needs to be done. Sometimes, with bureaucracies, I've seen it, you have to force savings. I was going to propose, to tell you the truth, that we look at a 10% overall decrease. We've got 3.5% right now, but I'd like to see a 10% overall decrease in the total general fund budget. I think, to be frank, we got some good KPEG ideas out there. I like the fact that some of the KPEG ideas were actually included in this, which is good, but there's still a lot more very valuable KPEG ideas. And there's also the fact that's been going now for a while that 85% of our costs are salaries and benefits. And frankly, I think we need to take a look at those. As an example, there's no way I can support adding a CRA director at this point. Basically, we have to figure out how to do our job at the lowest possible price, and tough decisions have to be made. I think hopefully the rest of the budget process will take care of that. I think a lot more discussion needs to happen, and I will not support anything above what we've got right now for proposed millage rate, and I would actually like to see it lower, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Other council members?
I do agree. I think we talked about this at the last meeting, that we were looking at a rollback rate plus a decrease. Because we don't have the data there, I'm leaning towards approving the rollback rate with the caveat that we really do some serious crunching and look at decreasing. I agree with Councilman Billman. Sometimes your hand has to be forced before you make the tough decisions. And we talked about efficiency, we've talked about effectiveness and how one affects the other. Regarding the CRA, the money is there. That's a totally different avenue. The money is coming in from the TIF. The money's there to pay for CRA projects and a CRA director, if that's the way we want to go in lieu of using a coordinator. But I am still concerned about the building and zoning department and our number one goal. So if we choose to stay at the rollback rate, I say we need to, and it could be historic, for the first time ever, we might make a, finally, the end result is after we sell the numbers is going below that even. Because if you look at the data, if we decrease even 1% below the rollback rate, the difference is only $49,000, let's say $50,000, because I always like to round my numbers up. In a $9 million budget, if we can't decrease $50,000, we have a serious problem. I mean, that's minutia compared to the overall budget. So that's all I want to say.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Good comments. Scott.
This is the third time for you and I sitting here going through the budget. And I know I remember your statement, I think the first budget cycle in 2009, you said setting the proposed millage rate, and I think you and I wanted it lower possibly than the other three council members, and you said when you set it, you usually never bring it lower than that. And we actually did that first year. We found a little money, we brought it down a little bit, and I think with the flavor of the current council, I think most of us or all of us are open to potentially lower it if possible. We're certainly open-minded about it. With Ron's worksheet and the different departments and looking at all the numbers, I think it's certainly a possibility of going below this rollback rate, but it's a great start with Ann coming up with a 3.5% decrease in the general fund budget and 1.5% decrease in the millage rate. I think it's a great start, and we're heading in a good direction. And I think it's a good starting point. Set the millage rate.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really think we need to see the components of these budgets, decide the difference between needs and wants, and come up with a realistic burden for the folks out there to help us bear.
Okay. I'd like to open the discussion on proposed millage for the public comment. The proposed budget, the rollback rate is on 8.3979, and so I'd just like to hear your comments. Well, we would like to hear them. Vic?
Sorry. Vic Brungart, former resident, now interested citizen or something. If you take 8.4 and take 10% of that, you got 0.8 in round numbers. 8.4 minus 0.8 gives you what, 7.6. That's what I would think you might want to start with.
Other public comment? Okay, I'd like to bring it back to the council for the adopting a proposed millage.
I'd like to make a motion to submit for the rollback rate for a proposed millage of 8.3979 for the coming fiscal year.
I guess I'll second it with the caveat that we'll crunch our numbers and hopefully do a better job, since we have to set it this evening.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Rhodes, second by Councilwoman Deanan, and Lenore.
Councilmember Billman?
No.
Councilmember French?
No.
Councilmember Deanan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rhodes?
Yes.
Mayor Ferrante?
Yes, and the proposed millage is set at the rollback rate, but with much more to do. Okay, thank you, Ann. Thank you for your work. Thank you, staff, for everything you brought to the table tonight. We are going to take a 5-minute changeover break as we go from special. Welcome back, and thank you. And we are going to have a continuation of a meeting that we started on the 18th, and some items, we have a schedule, and let me see, agenda item number 6, 165 Cinnamon Drive, non-conforming garage conversion, is that still...
That particular item, the issue of nonconformities in the city continues, but this particular item is removed.
That's kind of OBE because the guy didn't get the house.
He didn't, someone else bought it.
So
Someone else
we are
bought
not
the
going
house.
to do agenda item number 6.
That is correct.
So what is the status of the RFP for planning services?
Like I said, John and I have been working on that, and that'll be ready for August 1st.
It will be?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Hey, but before we move on,
Yes, sir.
I think it's worth mentioning that I think everybody saw the email from Mr. Gray. That property fell through because of issues that we currently have in the city, and we lost the opportunity to improve that property and get a much more higher value property put on the tax rolls because of these issues. That's why it's up to us to fix them.
That's right, Councilman, and like I said, this particular issue with Cinnamon is dead, so to speak, but that doesn't mean that the issues of nonconformities, they still need to be addressed.
All right, agenda item number 7, which is 17, and I'll just do that because some of us have a package still from the other night,
Right.
is discuss take action on DRS Community Center non-resident fees. Non-resident fees, and Ann, I will send that to you.
Okay. Now, this had been discussed on, I believe it was May, was it 12th or 16th? 16th. And there was the discussion there, and let me read, Jim Beadle is obviously not here tonight, and he sent me an email with his response because the issue was that the attorney was going to city attorney was going to respond, and also a conversation with the county should ensue. So let me read Mr. Beadle's response. This is the summary I recall giving City Council when this issue was last discussed in May. I indicated that I reviewed the agreement as written. Now, this is the DRS Community Center non-resident fees is what we're talking about here, and that the agreement could be interpreted as having terminated per its apparent terms. It all depended upon if and how much a court would look at the history behind it to determine intent. My recommendation back in May was to determine from a practical standpoint whether proceeding down a path to impose the suggested non-equal fees would adversely affect the city's relationship with the county. It was suggested the city contact the county to determine this issue. And I did contact the county, and I did speak with Jack Masson, who is head of Parks and Recreation, and he said that all fees are to be non-discriminatory with regard to residency as per the intent of the original interlocal agreement. Christine Lepore, who is one of the county attorneys, wrote, "The language in Section 4 requires fees to be neutral with regard to residency." And I also asked Carrie Stoms to calculate the fees that would be increased if there was a $1 administration fee per receipt for the non-residents, and that would generate, about $4,410 annually. Of course, it's important to note that in 2000, Brevard County passed a South Brevard Recreation District, which essentially extends pretty much from the Pineed all the way down. And as Jack Masson said to me, Ann, that includes every resident who lives in the South Brevard Recreation District who could theoretically come up and use the Schechter Center. So $500,000 or $500,000 was from the taxpayers used to renovation of the Plaza building, which is now the DRS Center. And I was also actually involved in this, and the intent, in fact, was for equal, non-discriminatory fees. Council could ask Carrie Stoms to increase another administrative fee for all. If they choose to just impact the non-residents, future relations with the Brevard County Commission and relationships with the Parks and Recreation Department could in fact be in jeopardy.
Well, I would like to go back and, is that all right to talk now?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Because I remember this very distinctly, and the direction was for the city manager to contact the county attorney, not in an adversarial way, but to sit down and discuss it, because they face the same financial situation that we do.
Mm-hmm.
I also talked to Jack Masson way back when in March, and he and Christine had said that we could charge additional fees. So the point was just to go back to the county manager in the minutes. We directed the city manager to go back to the county manager and discuss this amicably to see if we could come up with something, because they also face the same situation. And if not, regardless, the contract needs to be rewritten, because the contract is void.
The interlocal?
Yeah, the interlocal is void. So I don't know. I know Jack, I know he's the director of Parks and Recreation, but it really should have been brought to the county manager for discussion.
Why is the interlocal void?
It's void because it was never, after 2 years.
Well,
I think it was 1 year with 2-year renewal, and then it hasn't been renewed since 1980, whatever year it was.
Well, actually, it was
90, whatever.
during the time it was being built was where the 2-year issue, I think, came into. But it says council recommended looking at the fee structure and for the city to investigate with the county, and that means I called Jack Masson and also got information from the county attorney, so I did that, and then you say to rewrite a new interlocal agreement.
Well, if it's the will of if it's the will
Yeah,
of
I
the council
understand.
not to pursue this, but we had already beaten this horse, so I don't see what we're jeopardizing if you have a nice amicable conversation. In most jurisdictions, in fact, if you go to any, they charge additional fees for non-residents. We have to pay for the electricity, we have to pay for the wear and tear on the building. We actually looked at, they invested $500,000 into the facility, but we're still paying the line of credit. So we've paid millions of dollars for this facility. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. The city has to balance its budget, and they charge the, I guess, a user fee, an admin fee, plus now they're charging the children per head to go on the maintenance fee. So I'm just trying to figure out every dollar counts.
Yeah, and this is just at the DRS Center. It doesn't have anything to do with any other, the sports.
No, I understand,
Yeah.
but it's still the recreation department that needs to generate some fees. So whatever this council wants to do, but regardless, that agreement needs to be rewritten and re-signed by both the county and the city.
Thanks. Greg?
Whether
Yeah.
it stands the way it is or changes.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Ann. Ann, do we charge non-resident fees for other facilities other than DRS?
Yes, you do. This is the only one because of the $500,000 with the Parks referendum in 2000. You are correct. It's the only one.
Right. Okay, understand that. Do you think it's worth going back and maybe having the rec board reevaluate the non-resident fee structure for other than DRS rec facilities?
Well, I think that I know the rec center discussed, the recreation board discussed this issue, and I think they have been, let me see what it says here. Well, I know that the rec center, the rec board did discuss this issue, and I don't know about the other issue of raising fees, but I think that Carrie had indicated that they had been discussing this and they would be raising some fees at other locations, and even at the DRS center, but they had always raised them without discrimination against residents, or non-residents, I should say.
Yeah, I know at the DRS we're looking at the whole fee structure for both resident and non-resident by, square footage and
right.
usage and that sort of thing. But I'm wondering maybe if it wouldn't be worth asking them.
Okay, I think, what do you...
Draw a meeting, we have to look at, are we pricing ourselves out of...
No.
What do you got, Lloyd? Anything on this?
Well, again, I think we're treating a symptom here, all right, and not the disease. We're essentially administering, snake oil medication to a health problem that goes beyond just the rec center, the DRS community center.
You there?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. Must be the Queertrons up here in D.C. I think we have to take a look and make sure that we're not pricing ourselves out of the market for our non-residents, but still maximizing our non-resident fees, because our residents, our citizens, pay a lot of money to support the O&M of non-DRS facilities, and we just need to make sure that we're maximizing that. That's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you. Lloyd?
And Greg, I don't know if you heard it or not, but I really think that we are, as I said, treating a symptom and not the disease. We need to understand where our revenue and outlays do not balance. For example, we know that Pelican Beach Park costs the city over $60,000 to maintain, after you take into consideration all the fees that we take in, running out the pavilions and things like that. But somehow or another, we need to cover, that's 20% of what it costs us, all right, a year to run the rec department. We need to figure out how to get that $60,000 out of the people that benefit from that facility. We still have no understanding of what it costs to operate the community center compared to the various classes and activities we hold there. There are people that use that center that don't pay anything.
Carrie's working on that, and so is Alan, the square footage costs and so on too.
Changing, yes, if there are places outside of the DRS Community Center where we can adjust fees for non-residents, as long as we understand the population of non-residents that represents, then perhaps that is one small area to focus on. But again, I think an administrative fee across the board is a Band-Aid on a...
No, we need to just,
right.
Yeah.
I noticed the rec board is not meeting in August for some reason.
Okay.
I don't know if it's just that date that they can't meet, but if they could discuss this before their September meeting, that may be something, I don't know, you could ask Carrie to ask the board to meet. I'm not sure why they canceled the August meeting. It could, I mean, there's probably a lot of people just on different vacations, but maybe they could meet at a different time to at least get this ball rolling on the user fees.
Right.
And again, it's not just the people who are using or taking classes and things like that. Does anybody have an idea of how many people use Hightower Beach Park or Pelican Beach Park on an annual basis?
Well, renting the facilities, yes, they would
Well, I know
know
we
at
know
least
that,
that cost, but I'm not sure that anyone knows the exact number of people
But
that
again,
come to the beach.
there are, if I want to go to the movie theater, I got to buy a ticket. Okay? And nobody subsidizes that ticket for me. I agree that the park is there for the enjoyment of the people of Satellite Beach because we're paying for it. All right? But for the people that come from outside of Satellite Beach, they could enjoy it too, but couldn't they benefit from it and pay a little bit? Like, isn't it Cocoa Beach where they set it up so that they put parking meters in it? A lot of
Cocoa Beach has.
Yeah, but if you had a sticker and you were from Cocoa Beach, then you didn't have to pay for the parking. Isn't that?
That's true.
So, what's wrong with us doing something like that at Satellite at the beach?
Didn't they have that at one of the parks and then they pulled them all down there a little bit? So, yeah, I thought they did.
Well, the county did, and then they were going to do it for one of them. We'd have to really look into that, because when the beaches were given to us from the county, I think it was built in there, once again, on this interlocal agreement, not to charge different residents per day. I mean, but that was...
So, with the county, who won?
Well, we did. We got control of the beaches. I mean, don't you think so? Well, okay. But anyway, let's get back. Okay, let me open this for public comment. Charging, it's just to non-resident fees at the DRS Center in particular.
Dick Brungart, former resident, now non-resident. This is tough, but I'd like to bring two things up. One is that interlocal agreement. We always need to keep that in mind. Plus, I tend to look at things more from the county level, because if the Lord's willing, I may be a county commissioner for District 4, which is going to cover here sometime in the future. And I look at the possibility of somebody coming in from Mims or Titusville or Palm Bay or somewhere, and maybe somebody would remember that $500,000 that went in there. Maybe they wouldn't. But I'd just like to see us get some money for operating their OEM or operating and maintenance a little bit different way than say, okay, you got to walk in the door and pay $1 more than somebody who's a resident. I know there's pros and cons both ways, and I know, as Lloyd said, we've got to get some money in there to operate the doggone thing. But this whole thing of user fees is a tough one, especially when you got that interlocal agreement and you got people from hopefully coming in to enjoy the Schechter Center and not feeling like, okay, somebody's going to dig into my pocket. I don't have an answer, but I would say if I were leaning towards something, I'd try to get the money some other way than saying, okay, here's $1 every time you come in. You might even try something that says, okay, to use it, here's an annual cost, and that's been done before. And, it's sort of the way you present it. It's really a marketing type thing. And I think it ought to be thought of very carefully, because you don't want people negative on using something. I'd rather see the place just packed, jammed with people, quite frankly. And I don't think in closing I have a real solution, but sometimes the amount of money coming in from that could be negative in terms of the overall benefit of saying, hey, we love to have people here in our city. And that's all.
Thank you. Other public comment? I have 4 people: Skip, Ron, John. Skip.
Yes, Dick Bollinger is. I just had a quick comment on the parking meters at the beach. It seems to me that it's a good idea on the surface, but once you consider the cost of enforcement, the cost of somebody going around taking the quarters or the dollars out of the meters and extra burden, an extra meter maid perhaps for the police department and the cost of all that, seems to me the cost of enforcement might exceed the cost of the revenue derived. And I would just ask you to consider that.
Thank you. And that is not really on the table tonight, but we will. I mean, that will sometime be on there, I think. Ron, and then John.
Ron Jagutis, resident, Satellite Beach. I would like to say a comment about the parking meters. Just reminds me of a show of Parking Wars.
Yes.
Parking Wars. The Schechter Center, I know there was $500,000 given by the county, and it is an interlocal agreement. I think it should be discussed with them, but the first order of business, we must remember that I believe the revenues are down for those activities based on Kerry's projections. We have a problem with that then already. The next thing, I think we need a population study of who utilizes that before we can even jump to that. And at the same time, talk to the county. There's two things needed, talking to the county and a population usage study. Maybe then we can start making decisions about this. If there's 75%, 80% on average out of the city, could be cutting our own throats financially by not doing this the right way. I don't have an answer about this, but I think there needs to be studies on this. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
And just very quickly, it is 70%, Ron, 70% Ron, that are non-residents.
Yeah, that's for, I believe that's 1 month, what I remember. I do not, and maybe you have the additional data for the annual.
Right, and it is 70%.
It is annual?
That is correct.
John Fergus, 135 Maple. If you look on your water bill, if you don't flush a toilet, open a faucet, or use a drop of water, you still pay. That's basically a connection fee, an availability fee. As a resident, I have no problem with paying an availability fee for our rec programs. And it does improve the value of my property and all the other values in the properties in the city because of the rec programs. So I really would suggest folks get off this fetish about making recreation revenue neutral. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Other public, Carol? It's okay. Carol? And then Gable. Gable comes.
Good evening. Carol Robachek, 560 Teakwood. Really liked your comment, Lloyd. I thought it was the first time I saw something that made sense with the rec. And perhaps it's a lesson to be learned as far as our CRA is concerned. I think the more we can make our parks and things easy keep, the more we can cut down on having to go ahead and make changes, having people in cleaning up all the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Gabe?
Dave Fine, resident. We can sit here and talk about this all night and come up with nickel and dime stuff. Until we do a marketing study on what we can do and how we can do it in the most efficient way, we're not going to make enough money to come up with that extra 20%, I believe you said. Okay, that extra 20%. Excuse me, City Manager, did you say 70% of the users are from outside Satellite Beach? Is that
At
correct?
the David Schechter Center, about 70%. Is that correct, Carrie?
Yeah. Okay. So basically, we need to have somebody volunteer to do a marketing study of what's going on. One of the things I noticed, I went by Lowe's, I believe that lady, and I remember Indian Harbor Beach also had one a long time ago, had a motorized hot dog cart. Okay, don't laugh. A motorized hot dog cart and sells soda, water, and stuff like that. I don't know how much money she makes sitting in front of Lowe's, but if we find somebody like that, now when I mean motorized, I don't mean anything like a big truck or anything like that. I don't want anything like that in our beach. I'm talking about like a bicycle type thing that's a motorized bicycle that people can't, push through the sand. You might look at something like that and they can ride up and down the beach, and I don't know how many people leave their wallets in the trunk of the car nowadays, because you can't leave your wallet sitting there and then go into the ocean and come back and still find it there anymore. That was back in my days. But we need to do a marketing study, basically, what it amounts to, and if you feel like doing that, that's up to you. But making up to the 20% is going to be rather difficult without coming up with some really innovative ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment? Okay, let's bring it back for direction for the city manager. Greg, you have anything?
No, not beyond what I already said. Thank you.
Okay, I think a couple of things, and from what I've heard, is we'd like to bring it back to the rec board, and possibly when for them to decide, and let me see what else. I think what Lloyd and Cheryl are saying about just figuring out where the money is going in the rec center, eventually we have to figure that out, Carrie. If we're actually losing 60,000, maybe there's a way to capture that. And I know what John's saying, that we are a rec center, and John, I don't think we're trying to do away with anything that we put out there. Just see how we can break even on this, because we're trying to get taxes down. We find, and that would be one of the ways to do that. It's increasing revenue. This is the only way you can offset the expenditures. So, I think, is that it? Is that what you'd like? Okay, let's press on to the next agenda item.
So what is the direction?
Go back to rec board, and then also to, what did you write down? Just to...
Looking at the
have Carrie look
funding,
at
the money situation, the revenue.
I think it's premature to go back to
And I would
county
also
rec.
like that the interlocal agreement, if it needs to be updated, be rewritten, take it back to the Board of County Commissioners, get it up to snuff. I forget what year it was signed. What year was it signed
I
anyway?
believe it was 2002.
2002.
Maybe it was one.
So then get it on and make it clear and concise, and it's on the books and it's done with.
And then just look at the interlocal agreement. Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Agenda item number 8, amendment to council policies and procedures. This is item number 18 from, and there are a few things in here, and I won't take the city manager's thunder on this, but there are some things in there that we wanted to discuss as a council. Should the policies be amended to reflect the current policy of a time limit for 5 minutes for citizens' comments? Can we use the resident and non-resident that we've been doing? Does the council want to include a statement that the proceedings are being videotaped? Does the council desire to establish a policy requiring citizens being reappointed to a city board to be interviewed again? And council will need to determine if they want to establish term limits for city boards. So this is actually just like council discussions on a lot of things that we've been milling around. There might be other things that we want to do on here. This is not the agenda item to move public comment to the end of the meeting. That would be the next one. That is not this one. This is just council procedures. Okay, what do we got, guys? And go.
I'll start.
Go ahead.
Just going down the bullet points there. Should the policy be amended to reflect the current time limit of 5 minutes and 3 minutes on the agenda? I think you've done a good job with that. I think people get up, usually 5 minutes is good for the introductory comments, 3 minutes. I know Ron went over tonight and you just said, well, let's let, you signaled for in order to continue on, which is real good. I think Councilwoman Dean and stated it 1 or 2 meetings ago, and I've made some comments to you about it. Just the opening comments, the free speaking comments at the beginning of the meeting. Again, the freedom of speech, and you need to say what you want to say, but there's a time and a place for personal talking to somebody up here. We're here for city business, and I think that you've made some statements in the last couple of meetings, and I think it's much better. I think it's, and that's my feel on it. That's my intake. And just the other ones, for me, I think the other ones with the videotaping, I think everyone understands that now on the YouTube and the audio. Reappointment to boards, I'm not sure about that. I think I would certainly like to look at term limits. I know that there's a lot of citizens who have spent many, many years on these boards, a lot of personal sacrifice and time. But again, I think there's term limits on council seats in government entities and things. I think that's healthy to try and nurture some younger folks to come in and be part of the community and the process here. And if we can try and nurture that and to get more people in without having the same members on there year after year after year, I think we need to maybe look at that.
Okay, thank you. Other council comments? Sorry.
I'll go. I agree with Scott, and I think that the second and third bullet points have already been beat. They beat those to death. One of the things, though, I would like to discuss is the reappointments and potential to be interviewed. Some of these folks we don't even get a chance to interview, and they just get reappointed. And lots of times we have alternates that don't get the opportunity to be on a board. And I think that needs to be looked at, because the alternate sits there, someone gets reappointed, and eventually the alternate goes away. And I think that's really unfortunate when new people are interested and they become an alternate because that's the only slot and they never get the opportunity to move forward onto a board.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think on the first one, you're doing a great job handling the citizen comments as well as the agenda item comments. I think what perhaps Councilman Rhodes is referring to would be a measure of civility in the exchange of information. I know that the previous council passed a civility resolution that at times seems to have slipped our grasp. As far as the identification and videotaping and things like that, I think that's fine. I would like to meet people that are being reappointed for boards. Sometimes, we don't get to go to all the boards sometimes, and so it'd be nice to at least hear the people speak and listen to their credentials and what their plans are for the future, because I think that that's an important component of the board membership. So, I think we should interview people being reappointed.
Okay.
As far as term limits go, term limits is probably good for politicians, all right, but for people who are actually serving, like councilmen, all right, and women, perhaps term limits aren't as important. I think I'd like to hear what the citizens think about it, though.
Okay.
And I think that I could be swayed either way.
Greg?
Yes, sir. On the first bullet, yes. On the second bullet, first line, yes. Second bullet, second line, no. Third bullet, yes. Fourth bullet, yes. Fifth bullet, yes. And I think it should be 5 years. I think that term limits encourage new ideas on board. I think the idea that devoted citizens who stay on boards will still want to come and they can offer their inputs, well-received inputs. They can contribute via attending board meetings, even if they haven't been reappointed. However, I think if we do that, we need to be smart about how we lay term limits in for boards, and we have to do it in a waterfall manner so that all members don't term out at the same time. So we have to be smart about how we lay in those term limits. And that's my input. Are we going to vote on each one of these?
I think we would just vote if we wanted the staff to look into it and come back with some sort of ordinance. We'll ask Lenore because she's the board's person, and then let's see. We'll get some comments on that to see what we want to do. We'll give direction before we go. Thank you, and thanks for your comments on the 5 minutes. I think that the 5 minutes and the 3 minutes are getting much better. I do want to keep them non-political, now that we have people running for office or people becoming up running for office. It's not the platform to make political statements, I think, and it is the city's business. And I didn't make that up. I got to tell you, the attorney told me that we're here to run the city with your help. And actually, the last couple of weeks, I've felt, okay. Felt pretty good about it. And 5 minutes is, I think, sometimes a little long for citizens' comments, but that's good. That's the only time you get to speak about anything you want to. And the 3 minutes for agenda items, sometimes we have 10 people, that's 30 minutes. So that's, I think that's good. That's my thing. I like the interviewing. Some of our boards are 2-year reappointments. I don't know if we have to interview every 2 years. Maybe we could, were you thinking every time we reappoint, or would we ask them to maybe charter them to 3 years?
I guess we'll have to look at that when the recommendations come back.
Yeah,
rather than
because
be
some of them are 2, and if you interview every 2 years, it may get cumbersome. And then term limits, the good and the bad. The president has term limits, Congress does not. And it works both ways. I think we have term limits, and many councils throughout the state do not have term limits. But I think term limits is good for councils. I think it really is. Boards, if we set them for like 8 years or 4 terms, it depends how long the term is. I think we could discuss that. Let me open this for, now we're discussing just council policies and procedures. If you got something else to throw out there, bring it up. Any public comment? Sir, in the back.
Jack Frazee, citizen and former building official. I think you need some term limits. I used to have to go to all those things. And once in a while, you like to see some new blood in those meetings. You need a different, because some people get so set in their ways that no matter what comes up,
Before you leave, Jack, you got a number of years?
Did I put it in the city?
No, that you would like on term limits?
Oh, I don't think 8 years, that's a little long.
Too long? 4?
4 years.
Okay, 4. And Greg said 5 or something like that.
Yeah, something, close to that.
Okay.
Because I think it's, when you keep going to these meetings all the time, it'd be nice to have some new ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment on any council policies and procedures? Skip? Steve, you'll be next.
Yes, Skip Bollinger, still a resident. I believe that there was discussion at the last meeting about a P&P manual, about the possibility of contracting with someone to write or rewrite. if we already have one, I would like to suggest we probably don't need to commission a giant tome from some third party to, in other words, take the one that we got, or perhaps plagiarize one from another community and use it as a template and just massage it into what needs to be updated and what needs to be
We've
done.
created another position that should take care of that and not create that third hierarchy that you're talking about.
Okay, and the other thing I would just remind us that term limits are a two-edged sword. I think people that disagree with me should be term limited, and those who agree with me should be exempted. And the example would be, I would have liked to have seen President Reagan have a third term. On the other hand, guys like Senator Byrd and the hero of Chappaquiddick were there entirely too long. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
I know, no political. But I love Reagan, though, so I can't.
Steve Headley, resident, whatever. I think there's a third option, actually, in that if you have a board vacancy, that you let anyone apply. That way, the person who was on the board could reapply. The person who wants to come on the board could reapply. And then you were picking the best person. One of the problems I've always found with term limits is that, in essence, you may be getting rid of a really good person for a slob. No offense. Not pointing to you guys, but I'm just saying, for someone of a lesser ability or a lesser quality. If the board's important, let everyone compete for the job just as they would in a business situation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Other public comment? John?
John Ferris, 135 Maple. I would suggest on the interviews that you include or add to that, let the members of the board give you guys input on what they think of the member. You will see that person one time here. You will not see how they operate on the board. You won't see if they're obstructionist or if they're constructive or whether they just sit there like lumps on a log. So that may be another way to get some input from the people that actually have to live with the person. As far as term limits, very bad idea. And I think a couple of people have expressed why. You'd have somebody that's really productive and they got to leave. All you guys have to do is have the intestinal fortitude to tell somebody, guess what, there's somebody that's better than you out there. Now, the idea of interviewing everybody, that's a possibility. That might be an alternative. But that means you guys are going to sit here listening to people probably almost every month. That's every other meeting. Either that or scheduling special meetings, because if you ever counted how many people are on our boards, and by the way, 5-year term limits is silly. CPAD is a 3-year term. That says you can't be there 2 terms. So get your facts straight first.
Thanks, John. We have to look at those charters to see about the reappointments. Because some are 2, some are 3, I think some are 4. Other public comment? Okay, let's bring. Sir?
David Chester, 635 Silver Court. I've been through this process a couple of times. It was meant to be facetious. A lot of times. I think re-interviewing is not a problem because frequently you haven't been here when they're appointed. You didn't get a chance to meet them, particularly in that case. So we've never done that, but I think that's certainly reasonable and it's an expected thing to do to talk about it. Term limits on these people who have really got good experience for you can be, I think, can be an issue for you. If you interview them, you have a chance to make that decision. And if you know what their attendance has been, you can get that information from either the board chair or the secretary usually. Are they participating or not participating? That's one of the factors you ought to look at. There's one other one I just forgot. When you get over, that happens to you. But term limits, I think, are a problem. If you interview them and you have that chance to talk to them, I think that's an important part of it. I guess that's the point we wanted to make. I think that's a good idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Any other public comment? Okay, let's bring it back for just time limit 5 and 3 sounds good.
Yep.
And the two on the boards, interviewed again, and term limits.
You know, just one other thing, it might be, and we go through this interview process and it might not even be necessary. There may be some boards where you just appoint people. That would help streamline it, because I know in the beginning we were doing a lot of interviewing and I just, I don't know, it's a little bit to think about. And also there are a couple boards in our code that don't even exist anymore that really need to be taken out of the code. And they actually list specific requirements for that board member. In fact, you must have a background in building or architecture and things like that. So, you know, we need to make sure if we're appointing people to these boards that they meet these qualifications.
One of the things that we started, I think Mark Breimer started, and we just continued, is that the liaison to the board makes the nomination, because they have seen that person work. And that the liaison can get with the chairman to see, what do you think about that person? John said, you know, I think one of the things, you know, have everybody contribute. I'm not sure if I agree with an evaluation of someone, but if the liaison gets with the chairman.
You don't want it to be a popularity contest.
No. If the liaison gets with the chairman and then the liaison appoints, I think that's been working well. The interview process, I think that there should be another time for it, because many of you haven't met anybody except the person that's on your board. I just tell you this, that when I became mayor, I went to every board meeting, and I met everyone. But that's hard to do. It took me a long time to do that, too. And you know, there's so many things coming up now that we don't have the time to do that. But
well, I think a salient point here is that the council has to make a tough call when it comes to selecting a board member. If a board member is no longer
active, participating,
or if they're disruptive, or there's some other factors associated with their service, all right, and their time or their renewal time is upon us, then they should be considered along with everyone else. And if they're still contributing in a positive way to that board, I say interview them compared to whoever else is applying and see if we want to select them again. Make the tough call here at the council seat and not an arbitrary limit.
And the boards are important. We are basically a board-oriented community, and don't shortchange the boards and their qualifications. I think they're integral to the city, and we need to take our time and be aware of who's on the board and how they're selected,
Another positive thing about the interview is if our intention is to reappoint a person to a board, all right, it's also a good opportunity to thank them for their service on that board. But at the same time, and along the same lines, if people are going to volunteer for boards, all right, I don't want to tell them, well, we'll let you volunteer for the first 3 years, all right, maybe the next 3 years, but after that we don't need your volunteer service anymore.
it's true. And I know, like John, the board, the CPAB, which you're on, I mean, they do things 10 years out. You may have someone working on something, and we let them have a 4-year term. There's some PhDs on that board that we need to continue to foster to keep them on that board, to work on some of the long-term stuff. Maybe some of the short-term boards not as bad, but I think some of them. Okay, so what have we decided? Let's press on. Okay, 5 minutes, 3 minutes. Do we want the city manager to ask the city clerk to look at anything on term limits? Let's discuss term limits. Term limits, Greg?
Can we have alternatives, have a report come back with alternatives to choose from rather than based on each board?
So what would you like to see? And Ian, this is for you. What would you like to see? Alternatives for either term limits or not, or interview process every other term? Something
But
like
each
that?
board is going to be different, so you probably have to list each board and then we can just pick and choose for each one.
Maybe, could the staff just discuss?
I would just say
I don't
term
think-
lengths, but not limits.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think we talked about it before. What do you have, 8 boards, 7, 8 boards? We have a lot of boards. But if someone moves to the city or gets interested, retires, has extra time, and they want to join a board, they might come to City Hall and say, oh, I'd like to join the Planning and Zoning Board. Well, there's no openings. But somebody's been on the board for 2 terms, and when their term comes up, it's open for whoever wants to apply, and we can put it out there on the website saying, there's going to be an opening, I've been waiting for an opening, and we can compete against this sitting member and see if they're a better candidate and
We make the call.
give them the opportunity
That's
to
why they
serve on
have
the
an
board.
appointment for a certain amount of years, so that someone can fill that slot eventually. It's in each, if you look at each section, each board. Otherwise, we would just say you can sit.
Well, I think the liaison has a very important function in the boards. I really do, and you got to make tough calls. Okay, so let me see, do we have any?
Mayor, you do have 10 boards and 2 committees, because I'm just looking at the
Okay,
roster
10
right
boards,
here.
2 committees.
Hey, as an alternative, can we go with term limits with a caveat? And that caveat being, if there's no one to replace the retiring board member, then that board member stays, but otherwise another citizen gets a shot. That's just an option.
Okay, we can look at that. What we'd like you to look at, and if you could look at, or just come back with maybe something on re-interviewing policies, and maybe some contingencies on dates for, maybe not term limits, but, there's a lot of contingencies. I don't, maybe, I'm sorry.
For the length of appointment? The length of appointment?
Yes, length of appointment. I think both those things. Thank you, and thanks for your comments, everyone. We're going to go on to the discussion item, agenda item number 9, which is 19, which is discuss take action on public comment. And Ann, do you want to open this?
Well, this had been discussed by council at an earlier meeting, and council had discussed where to place public comment, at the beginning of the council meeting or at the end of the meeting. And also, Mayor Ferrante, you had previously addressed certain rules of conduct to be observed at public meetings.
Okay, so let's bring this back to the council. I think that there's, now, by the way, before we start, and I'll talk about the council, every city is different. I know that some cities do it at the end, even within the Space Coast League of Cities. Palm Bay, Melbourne, either Cocoa Beach do it at the end. Some do it at the beginning. Some do it at the beginning and the end. So, I mean, there's all contingency. I mean, so what are you thinking? What would you like to do?
Well, this issue actually came up under the former city manager. He was the one that had recommended it. I think that the past couple meetings or so, things have changed, but what it has done for me in the past is when one of you is attacked personally, it sets the tone for me. I think it's my only real maternal instinct that I have is that fight or flight or mama grizzly comes out at me. Do I always agree with everything everyone says up here? Absolutely not. But the personal attacks were pretty ridiculous, and that set the tone of the meeting for me. And that's where it came up. It was the former city manager had actually recommended it because it was setting the tone for the meetings.
I did think some were, I used the word toxic. And not only, I mean, I remember a couple meetings in January, February, well, even, but I think public comment has changed. I know that Mr. Baker brought him up, a couple people brought him up when we had comment last time that if we go to 10:30, 11 o'clock for public comment, it's, I don't think it's fair. So I don't know, what are you thinking?
I don't want to limit anybody's ability to make a public comment. I actually kind of like the idea of having a split opportunity where you could come in and if you were an early to bed type person, you could come in and sign up for public comment at 6 p.m.
Oh, like a time certain.
Or in a time certain slot for a little bit later, like 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. or something like that. That way people who, maybe can't make public comment at 6 could come in and make their public comment at 9. But it's hard to do because if you have a short meeting, then you're stuck here.
But only one public comment, but...
One per person, but you could either do it at 6 or at 8, we'll say. I mean, I don't remember ever getting out of here before 8 on any meeting. But
I never thought of that. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm actually perfectly fine with it in the beginning of the meeting, but I just, the personal attacks and the civility were becoming an issue.
Civility is
a big issue. I had a real problem with that, and it affected the way I responded to a lot of the issues because it just put me in a really bad mood.
I will say this, I think there is no guarantee what's going to happen between now and November at public comment, but I know that the people that are here, the people that were here at the last few meetings, I'm very impressed, and I'm really, you're going, wow, this is a good meeting, and I really am, and I think it's just changing. I think everyone is sticking to the agenda items and the topics. I'd like to see it just continue as it is, and then we could always come back to it. Greg, you got a comment on this? Anything?
I'm fine with it as it is. I think everybody can police themselves.
Okay.
I think it was good, the idea of maybe at the end of the meeting. I know before the meetings are adjourned, you usually go, anything else by us, but you might say, citizen comment, you sat there for the last 6 hours, and you probably have something you want to say, and they can get up and have a final something.
No, I don't remember that.
I got to tell you, years used to be that the council talked, and then the public talked, and then we had discussion on that, then we had the public talk and the council talk, because you wanted to know what we were thinking, but we wanted to know what you were thinking. So this is, it just evolves. And I think right now we do public comment and then the council talks, but then some of you have said, I don't have the opportunity to answer what you said. I don't know how we change that.
Well, then more importantly, and other municipalities do this, or even the school board, it's the response. There's a form that fills out, and then you come back and the city manager answers the questions. We actually have a procedure. If the staff is here and they know the answer, they answer the question.
And if not,
we need to take that a little more seriously. I know that's the gripe for a lot of the people in the community, that their questions are not answered. And then at the next meeting, then those questions are answered.
All right, any public comment on this, Gabe?
It's me again, Gabe, resident. To say that I have had a rather, trying to find a word, a rather contentious relationship with 80% of this council, is to say the least. I stand on principle, honesty, truthfulness, and character. And 80% of this council does not meet my standards. Just that simple. I want to clarify one thing. I have never ever written, sent emails, or anything to any council member threatening anyone without my name attached to it. Anything I have to say, I say to you, eyeball to eyeball. I'm not afraid of any of you. And although you call some of these people that you say sent you these emails, etc., cowards, I don't think they're cowards. I think they're afraid of your power or retaliation. On more than one occasion, council members had used the police department to investigate people with no basis in fact for an investigation. That's a fact. One council person started this investigation that possibly he might have gotten false information. Nevertheless, after he knew that the information he received was incorrect, the statement that was attributed to me was not made, stood at the next council meeting and bloviated or ranted for 20 minutes about how his life was threatened, his family was threatened, and any citizen better watch out because if they mess with him, they will come at the wrong end of the deal. As I said, 80% of this council does not meet my standards. I have certain reasons. If you want to debate me one-on-one, I'd be more than happy to do it. Anytime, any place, just call the time. And I will tell you what I think of you face to face. I'm not going to stand out here and start talking about this because a lot of it's political and a lot of it is just personal feelings on character and truthfulness and honesty. I feel that that the time should remain the same. It should be at the beginning. And although I appreciate you wanting to have somebody say coming in at 8 o'clock, well, by that time I might have gone home and I would have missed his comments. And I think that all the comments should remain the same. I'll be very honest with you, when I first saw that on the agenda, I thought it was just another insidious way to quiet the citizens that disagree with you. Look, you wanted this job. Not everybody's going to love you, not everybody's going to like you, some people are even going to hate you. Okay? But you wanted this job. Deal with it. If you're so sensitive and so uptight about somebody saying something, I'm sorry, my time is up?
Yes.
Then, there's the door.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Gabe. We're actually just discussing if we want to move public comment to the end. Yes or no? Yes or no? Skip? Yes or no?
Yes, Skip Bollinger, President.
Thank you.
I believe, Mr. Mayor, you suggested that among the plans that some of the other cities do, they have a comment period at the beginning and then also at the end. Myself, I would favor that, and the reason is twofold. Some of the folks that like to attend these meetings are still working and they have other responsibilities and can't get here at the beginning or earlier than the beginning to sign up, and they still would have things they would like to say. The other thing is, during the course of the meeting, you may trigger someone's thoughts that they didn't intend to speak when they walked in, but oh, that's a good idea. I have thoughts on that, and I would and give them an opportunity to express those thoughts at the end. Might be a good idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other public comment, Dick? I don't see any other hands.
Dick Bringard, non-resident. I like what Skip said. If you look around the room, you're not going to find too many people under 20 in the room, and a lot of us like to go to bed early at night. I'm one of them, and I like to get on early and say something. For one thing, it's good to have the people that can come early to say something. And let me also say, the reason people come here, at least from my standpoint, is to try to have some positive input to the meeting. I don't come here for anything other than to try to bring some thoughts, some experience, and some positive thoughts to the meeting. I don't come here for any political agenda. And I know personally there are a couple of people here in the room that have been, shall we say, attacked in mannerisms that are not really very nice. And I won't go into it at all. But the point is, what Skip said, and I think what Gabe said, it's good to have comment at the start, and it's good to have comment at the end. There are those people that are going to take their wives out like I did tonight to go to Texas Roadhouse to take advantage of the early bird special, and that's the reason I was late. But so I think that you just might consider some comment at the first and comment at the last, with the idea that people come here not to do much more than to try to help.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, let's bring it back to the council. I think some people are, public comment at the front and the end, you still only get to talk once for the whole night. Right. So that kind of negates, you know, maybe no one will talk at the beginning. Wait to the end. But personally, I think we're okay the way we are.
Yeah, I think we're fine the way we are, but there again, here we go. I'd like to ask Chief a question, because I got a little lost there. Has anyone on the city council ever used the police department for some kind of an investigation, or I'm confused?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That question. No, because I wouldn't do that. That's not what you pay me to do, is to use resources improperly. We investigate crimes or things that have to do with employees or things like that. The term investigation can be used just like the term threat. There's a criminal threat and there's a personal threat. There's a lot of other terms. No, I've never been asked to investigate anything or anybody for any non-criminal issues. And if I was, I would explain that, no, that's not what we do because that's not a crime. Or I would say, that is a crime and we'd certainly look into it. And we've done both. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. For this item, is it all right if council should leave them as is and just, Greg, is that okay? We'll leave it as is at the beginning of the meeting and 5 minutes?
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to, I appreciate the question from Councilwoman Dayton, and I appreciate the explanation from Chief Pearson. And I would just reiterate the fact that I think people need to be gentlemen and gentlewomen when they stand up and speak. And I think wishing that people got run over by a truck is not the way that a gentleman would talk. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Let's go on to agenda.
Just real quick, I know it's getting late. Joe, he's got an early bedtime. I'm a night owl, if anyone wants to know.
It's the 1,000th episode.
No. With that said, I want everybody to know you can call me anytime if you have something to say. I'm nose to nose, person to person type. You know, call me. I realize we're not going to make everybody happy all the time. You're right. We chose to run for this position, but pick up the phone and call me. I'll meet you for lunch. But, to say that you have to email or send packages without return addresses or fake addresses because you're afraid to talk to us, that's absolutely absurd. That's absurd.
I do think that's fading, and I think that it's going well. I mean, I may live in a glass house, but I think that it's, I'm proud of each and every citizen, and I'm proud of the council, the way we conduct our business, and each citizen that comes here. So, and I look at the YouTubes, and pretty good. And we sound good, and the public is good. All right, let's press on so we can. I'm not ready to go home, but agenda item number 10 is item number 20. Facilitating council communications. I know that this is one thing I always wanted to do, communications. Scott wants to do communications. We try to have town hall meetings. Sometimes we have them, sometimes we don't. State of the city, I am debating that. I like to have that in August. I think I should do that. The last couple of times I've had like 50, 60 people. I may have more, maybe not. I just give them a recap of the year, and it's pretty good. And by then I'll know what the budget is, and I'd like to do that. Scott is on for a town hall meeting if he would like to do that. I know Cheryl misposed, but if you'd like to do one also at some time, that would be, those are 3 tough months, April, May, and June. If you'd like to do one, or even Lloyd, if you'd like to, your October, November, and December for a town hall meeting. Okay.
I actually had talked to Ann. I would like to do one, and I was hoping, and I also talked about Lloyd doing one. I would be willing to move mine to the end of the year if you want to do one.
And
because
I'm
of
not
the
saying.
position you're in.
So June, July, August?
Is July, August, Scott, well, you guys can decide if you'd like to do one. And then you just pick a subject. You pick, Greg did his on transparency, and that was it. You may want to do something on some sort of communication. I think it'd be great. You may want to do it on the budget. I like to recap the whole year. I'll recap the whole year, but whatever you would like to talk about. You guys can decide. Does anybody like to go in August or something, or?
Sure.
You pick the venue, you pick the subject, you pick the time. And usually you go by yourself because it's not we don't come because it's not a special meeting or a council meeting, so you get to really, and usually city manager is there to answer questions, to help you if you need some answers.
Okay.
When would you like to do?
What days in August, would not interfere with normal operations?
That would be none.
Let me say, not the 1st, not the 8th, not the 9th, and not the 15th. How's that? Right off the bat, I can name that.
But why don't you do something like on the 16th? You will have
You know,
so
I
much.
was thinking that exact date.
No, yeah, of course. I mean, because you'll have so much stuff done. You'll have a CRA meeting, you'll have 2 budget meetings, or 1 budget meeting.
I'd love to do another meeting.
This is actually fun. And,
No, I
you do-
can. I'm seriously enthusiastic.
Good.
Now, the town hall meetings, do the department heads typically attend, or do you try to?
If you were going to discuss, if you discuss the police department will be there, or if you're going to hone in on building and zoning, then John would be there, or if you think you're going to discuss something where you need some expertise, I would certainly ask them to be there.
Okay. Well, I don't need to tell you what the subject or theme
No, but if you
would be.
need, any help with copying anything, or
Okay.
you want something of that nature, just let us know. Or if you need any other information from us.
Well, again, my idea of a town hall meeting is an interactive environment where, I may start out with, in the polite stage of teaming, so to speak, where I, pass out some information. But I think that the spirit and intent of a town hall meeting is to receive and interact.
In the past, it's been 20 minutes of you and 40 minutes of citizens.
Okay.
And Greg's went an hour and a half, actually.
Well, he can be long-winded.
Yes, he's not even.
Yeah, he's gone. And I think the intent also is for people for the citizens to come out and be able to be open and for that information to funnel back through the council person, through the city manager to get answers, so.
I think it's good. So tentatively, we'll set that. The updating a weekly or monthly council comment, that's going to happen on the website. We decided to have a page.
Would that be a 7 p.m. meeting? Is that what time
Whatever you want to
typically
make it.
do the town hall meetings?
You do whatever time you want to make it. You can do it at 7, 6:30. Greg did his at 6:30. You could do it at 7:30. You could do it at the pavilion. You could get the A-frame.
It would be hot.
The DRS Center.
Pavilion.
Yeah.
So you're going August,
Well, I would have to deconflict with anything going on at the DRS Community Center on the 16th if we wanted to do it inside where it was air conditioned and people could sit down.
Or you can do it at the A-frame.
Oh, acoustics aren't that great, but.
All right, the council columns is going to happen. And then the Beachcaster, you said that there's 8K in there, and we're looking for one for September, right?
Right, near the end of September.
Okay.
And then Cheryl had also mentioned from the desk of the web information too, so that would be a 4th point that.
Okay. I'm going to open this for public comment. Any other ways that the council and the city, we can discuss things? Okay, we're going to bring it back, and that's what we're going to do. We'll have a town hall meeting, we'll have I'll do a state of the city, and we'll have
When did you want to do that, Mr.
State of
Mayor?
the City, 17th of August.
Oh.
No, just kidding. I don't know yet.
That would be a Friday.
I would have still liked to seen a Beachcaster out sooner than later. I mean, we talked about it a couple meetings ago, and we looked at August 1st, and it got pushed back to September 1st. Again, all the communication for our city and the public is the Florida Today, and it's all willy-nilly, and people ask me all the time what's going on with the city, and there's no communication there.
What was the date again of the Beachcaster?
I think we're
Well, we had talked about that at the 18th and kind of agreed, and I can check exactly, but I think it was mid-September-ish that we were thinking of getting it out so that it would be before October, but that...
Still only one
it's-
publication before the election and stuff. I mean, we could get one out here 1st of August, and...
You can't because of the setup. They've got to set it up, and I've got my volunteers that...
Klobuchar came to us, I believe, if my memory serves me. She came with a, you know, it was simple, a couple, 3, 4 pages, whatever it was, and she asked for approval, and I think we gave the money, and it was on a Wednesday. Saturday, it was in my mailbox on Saturday, 4 days later.
Well, this would be with Flamingo Printing if we wanted to set it up and start it that way. So, I don't know. That's what we had talked about on the 18th. I'm getting confused.
No, I know we talked about that, but I've reflected on it. That's just, I would like to see more information out there. I mean, there's 3 seats up on our city council here, 1, 2, 3, and they're up for, I don't know that there's only one person who's even filed to run so far.
Right.
We could put something in there saying, hey, who wants to run for city council? And we'll get some people.
Well, I've asked for...
out on the 14th? The 22nd, I think, is the deadline of August.
When is it? When is the...
August 9th through August 22nd
Yeah, so
is
it's
the
9th through-
qualifying.
9th through 22nd.
Hey, I want to run for city council. I want to run for mayor, and Mr. Joe's not going to run again, so...
Well,
That's
I've
just my
also
thought.
asked for information from staff just about a week ago, and I've asked for information from council, so I don't think I have any yet. From anyone. I think that was for, did you send that?
You might have 2 council columns, one from Lloyd and one from
Did you,
Greg.
did he
We have
send?
the 500 words for
From-
Councilman Billman and Councilman
Okay.
French.
And then 3, I have
So you need
not.
another 300-word?
No, I don't.
Of course they did.
That'll do just fine. So we don't have any from other 3 council members.
24 hours.
Look, what are you going to do with it? I mean, did we decide what we're going to do with
Well,
it?
I know at the last time the Beachcaster was supposed to go out electronically just to see how many people did it. I mean, I did all those articles and nothing happened.
Nothing.
So I'm waiting
I
to
don't
the very
blame
end
you. I
before
don't
I
blame
spend any time on it.
I don't blame you, but again, if you want something quicker, again, we're going to be dealing with Flamingo because we're not, unless Carol wants to get involved all of a sudden again. The issue is, that's kind of the way, the direction we've been going, and I'll ask the volunteers if they can get it sooner.
I like the Flamingo. I think
Carol?
you know them.
Yes.
You can just stand up right there. What do you- Okay. Sorry.
This is one of those
First
times
one.
where we need interactivity.
Carol Robichek, 560 Teakwood. I too would really like to see it go out. I think it's important. I know the election's coming out, and just like you said, it needs to be there. And if there's anything I can do to help make that happen, I would be glad to, if you want me to contact you tomorrow.
That'd be fine. Why don't you do
Because
that?
it does. It requires a tremendous amount of one-on-one working with people to gather the information. Thank you.
All right, so that's just another thing of communication. Okay, let's...
And how are we doing with sponsorship or ads or?
Well, you see, that's the issue, that we haven't really started there. We've talked about it, and we know what we've got on the website. We've got businesses there that can be contacted, and I've talked with the volunteers last week about this and suggested the sizes of ads and so on from what we have been using in the Shore News. And we have to make them smaller, either one card or double card, because you have a number of businesses, and those businesses need to be contacted. But
How many volunteers do we have, or do we have a
2
committee?
volunteers.
We don't have a committee, though, we just have volunteers.
2 volunteers. Maybe we now have a committee with Carol.
Two outstanding policies.
Two outstanding.
Well, I
policies.
think, I spoke with Carol Robichek earlier this evening. I think that she would like to join that effort.
That'd be
Now
great.
we have a committee.
Is that, did I misquote, Carol?
No, that was exactly.
Okay, want to make sure.
So now, in the years past, am I correct, the staff used to prepare the Beachcaster, correct?
Yes.
And so
We eliminated the position.
there was a Beachcaster position?
Well, my guardian, since Rhonda did the Beachcaster.
No, but that wasn't her full-time duty, just doing the Beachcaster, correct?
Oh, but it was about, how many hours?
I'm not saying create a position, but we just brought in two
And then-
additional, we have three people here, three temporary employees, did I get the right, part-time employees.
At the end of the Beachcaster, we had like 3 different people working on it. We had Rhonda, Suzanne McClendon, and one other person putting it all together.
Right.
So it was, and Lenore, were you doing it too? Yeah, so we were spending.
A lot of time.
But it's something that the community wants,
I
and
know.
they've always wanted.
Well,
We gotta make it happen.
Yeah, the big thing on it was the $22,000 and a full-time position. So it was costing us 50, 60, 70,000 to Beachcaster. So now, through your helps, we've got it down to I think a fighting weight, which is nice. Thank you. Hey, let's talk about Michael P. Karate Park sign. Agenda item number 11. By the way, big ceremony on Friday night from
5 to 8?
5 to 8.
Isn't that 5 to 8?
5?
Well,
think it is. Doesn't it start at 5?
my thing went out at,
I'm pretty sure it's
the
5.
invitation went out at 5 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and probably have, discussion about 5:30, I think, or something. We got to talk to Terry about that. All right, so let's, we need to talk about the sign, I guess. This is agenda item number 21. So what's going on, Ann?
Well, there are several options for you to look at. I think there was one for $4,200, and Cheryl, you had something to say about that, didn't you, on the $4,200 sign?
Well, you can go through it and then.
Well, there are possibilities, and you can see the price ranges. I think it's $4,200, and according to Alan, what he just gave me, I keep getting new proposals here. This was $4,150, and it is not lighted, because the other signs were all with there'd be an additional cost for electricity. So they run from about $4,200 to $9,300. And then Carrie came up with a very interesting idea about the bronze plaque on Coquina. And do you see there's a little bit of a sketch also that should be included, not sketch, but some pictures of Sunrise Park and some Coquina configurations there with them. Just some ideas. And the two of the pictures are Sunrise Park, and then the others, one is a kind of a Coquina garden, and you could put a Coquina rock with a plaque, and that is going to run you about probably $1,000 or less. And so I was looking at something that would fit, and Carrie was looking at something that would fit in with that environment, as well as look nice, as well as be a little bit more frugal. So it's up to you.
Well,
to discuss.
just so you know, the rendering that is going around is for a sign. That would be the 6x7, $4,200 approximately, and there are people that are willing to give donations for the sign. So, and I'm willing to help with that, although from what I understand, that someone has to set up a separate account to receive the checks or the donations. What I'm hoping, personally, I think Mr. Crotty has spent 27 years here. We own the property. We spent a lot of money for Sunrise property, and we should ante up for the $4,200 for the sign. That goes along with the other signs that we have along A1A.
That's a $10,000 sign there, though, right?
No, but it would be the same sign, but only smaller, a 6x7, and it wouldn't be illuminated at night. So it's the same type of sign, but it's up to this council. if they choose to do the bronze plaque on Coquina, I don't believe that is an investment into the park or into the community, because you're probably not even going to see it. But if that's their will, then I'm willing to help with this and get some volunteers, that you would take the $1,000 for the Coquina, put it towards the donation for the more attractive sign, and let me work on it, and other people in the community work on getting the donations.
I like that sign. I don't like the coquina. I mean, if you go down Indian Harbor Beach and you see two signs that have been dedicated to past city managers, and I think that this park, I think that it would look nice also for Sunrise Park. I think it would designate it. Right now, we just have the park, a couple of parking spots, people parking everywhere. I think it would give, I think it would add a nice dimension to that. And we have Councilwoman Deanan, who's willing to look into it and to help with the process, even with the funding. If the city could, if we could set up a separate account.
Well, you can't, and that was the other part here. You cannot. As per the generally accepted accounting principles, you can't. I mean, you can set up a fund, but I think it would have to be, you have to be very careful. It certainly cannot be in conjunction with the city. And that's the point here, because the special revenue funds cannot be used to account for resources held in trust for individuals, private organizations, or other governments. Thus, donations for the sign or anything else unrelated to city businesses should not be solicited from the city website and should not really be associated, with the city and, as far as donations are concerned.
Is this not city business?
I think she just said that, basically.
Is there? No, but I was just asking a question. Is this not city business?
Well, again, this is according to the GAP, the generally accepted accounting principles from page 79 that Brenda had pulled out, because we wanted to make sure we were.
I mean, we created an ordinance. We named
A resolution,
the park.
yeah.
A resolution. We named the park. We bought the park.
I mean, I guess if the council wanted to pay for the sign, that's not a big deal, but if it comes down to no, we're not willing to pay for the sign, then I would like to move forward and try to solicit donations to pay for the sign. But I can't do it through, originally, we thought we could just set up a line item and the checks could be dropped off at the Parks and Rec Department for that specific, but I guess I'd have to go set up a separate account and deal with all that, or get volunteer help to do that.
I brought up once before, can we re-clarify? Why can this not be paid for by CRA? The property was purchased by CRA funds. All the Pelican Park, all the beach access signs, all the Wayfair signs, all those things were purchased by CRA funds. This is a park, or Sunrise Park sign in the CRA district. Can it be earmarked for that? I know you told me one time, and
Do you want to bring it before the CRA board?
Well, we're kicking the can down the road, so to speak, if we do that. I mean, what is the most expedient way, all right, to put a sign there?
City council pay for the sign, make a motion this evening.
Well, I'm torn here because I can't vote for a $10,000 sign.
$4,200,
A $4,200 sign. I agree that the sign should be, it should be congruent with our intent of that area, all right? If we were investing $4,200 of CRA money, for example, all right, into a property, I would think that we would want to get some sort of tax benefit out of that property, which we would not get out of Sunrise Park. Is that true?
Yeah, there's no tax.
Well, I would probably vote for a $1,000 sign as a councilman, but I'm not sure that I would vote for.
Well, would the council be willing to put the $1,000 towards the sign and allow
We
solicitation?
could vote for that, can't we?
Yeah, or we could vote, I think what we're saying is 3,200 in donations, then the council add up to $1,000. I mean, if you get 4,000 in donations, you only have to put in 200.
Right.
I would think. We could do that. We have to decide what type of sign that we like, that, do we want to have a sign like this? Do we want to have a sign like this? Do we want to have a $62 sign?
$62, was that not?
Yes. Alan should put one up there.
Oh, that's right, it was the enamel sign.
Yes,
That's right.
yes.
I don't know. Well, is this going to be open for public comment?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'd sure like to hear it.
But Greg, any comments?
Yeah, I like the bronze plaque in the Coquina. I think we've got one outside of City Hall to Percy Hitchcock, and I think if it's good enough for Percy Hitchcock, it's good enough for Mike Crotty, and I think we should press with that. That's my opinion.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to open this for public comment. There's several things that the council is discussing. Skip?
Yes, Skip Bollinger, resident. Our city manager used the word frugal. I think frugal is good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ron?
Roger Goodis, resident, the neighborhood. First of all, don't forget that if you get a lighted sign there, you might be violating the turtle season issue.
Yeah, we're not.
So, and I'm not looking at any details on this. And we've got GAP, you were saying, page 79? I'll have to look at that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment? All right, let's bring it back for either some discussion or a motion on what we want to do. I think we have enough ideas that we can discuss in a motion.
Well, I'm going to make a motion that the $1,000 that the frugal methodology of the bronze plaque and the coquina be committed by the city council, and allow me time to see if I can raise the rest of the funds from the community for this time.
For the other. Okay. So, okay.
I second it.
All right, I have a motion by Councilwoman Deanan and second by Councilman French. I think we understand that you would like to, the council is going to commit to $1,000, either coquina, or if you can get enough donations, have the other bigger sign.
Correct.
Okay, that's the motion. Lenore?
Councilmember Billman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rhodes,
Yes.
Councilmember French,
Yes.
Councilmember Keenan.
Yes.
Mayor Fontaine.
Yes, and that motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Agenda item number 12 and 22 is next council meeting, which is tomorrow night. August.
We're in trouble.
August 1st. Okay, what do we got?
I just want to let you know, I am going to probably have to either Skype in on this, or I'm going to be absent.
Okay, on the 1st.
It just depends on what I can swing, because I'm going to be out in California.
Okay.
besides, I don't know if they can stand looking
You,
at my face up there.
you do not have to Skype. You can also telephone in if there are some critical items that you want to be available for telephone. The only thing on telephone, it has to be at least a quorum up here. It has to be at least 3 of us physically here. But you can also telephone in with a certain portion.
I'm working it out with my employer.
Okay, and we can call you at a certain time if you want. If there's one item you just want to be involved in.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Next regular council meeting, what do we got, Ann?
Well, I'm looking at talking about the permanent city manager, the RFP for the planning consult or the planning individual, possibly also CRA person. Now, we've talked about special events coordinator, and maybe that could even be a volunteer coordinator as well as a possibility, just a thought on that. Maybe we can discuss that. What about the auditor's contract? I have some information on that as well.
I thought though, and I know there's been a lot of emails, I thought we already agreed to go forward with an RFP.
Well, let me say that in my research over the past couple of days, what Brenda has shown me is that it is a very long process of about 6 months that you have to go through because of Florida statutes and regulations that I was not aware of, and we have to start and put a public notification to form an audit committee and so on and so forth. So yes, we can go ahead, but it's probably actually, yes, it's actually probably a 6-month process. So you're really looking at fiscal year 13-14, apparently. This is what I'm looking into.
I know, I'm not, I've never heard of an RFP where you have an auditing
not
committee.
an
You have a
RFP,
selection
not an RFP.
committee, and you rank them, but not an actual
Well,
committee.
that's to actually change auditors supposedly. So I'm, like I said, I have that information. Well, I have the information and I'm looking at it to make sure that that is actually correct. So there'll be something regarding that on the next, on August 1st.
When do the auditors really get down into business? Because I remember this was an issue last December.
They start a
where we had
walk-
talked about doing an RFP, and we couldn't because they were already in the process.
Well, they start a walkthrough right after, I think, the close on, must be September 30th, that they actually start a walkthrough at that point in time. So you'd have to check with Brenda. I'm not sure of the full process with that, but she did say that they do a walkthrough at that point in time. I don't have a problem doing this. The issue is I want to make sure it's done properly, so I want to make sure the council has that information. So you'll have something August 1st regarding this.
I just want to, one more thing, just want to make sure it's pretty clear to this council that it doesn't look like this is going to happen with a time frame.
Well, like I say, I'm looking at it. Something will be on the August 1st agenda, whether it's the information that says, hey, this is going to take us a while, or it's information that says we can do it. Okay?
Do we even know how many other auditors there are in the local area? People that audit? Is there, are there multiple companies?
I think Brenda has a pretty good idea, having been, an auditor herself. So I think that she has a pretty good feel for it.
Do you know which auditors service, say, Cocoa Beach or Indian Harbor Beach? Or...
I don't know if that would, I'm not sure. There are just a number of firms out there from which to select. Brenda had also said that this firm actually does a pretty good job, and sometimes it's a function of management in directing what they're supposed to do. If you want to look at something over the long term, that you have a specified price, but if you're going to go back 10 years, then that's another issue and another cost involved. And like I say, sometimes that's a function of management directing that, if that's what council's wishes had been with a particular item. And one of those items I think that was of concern was the CRA.
Yeah.
So
I think the item of concern is how, over many years, they've missed that.
And that is a point. And there's nothing wrong with changing firms and finding out what other opportunities there are out there. But there are certain constraints, and I say I'll report that on the 1st.
Okay.
Anything else that council would like to add?
I only have the list.
It's a big one.
I think I would like to readdress the grant writer RFQ. That was a source of income for the city, and revenue is clearly a challenge today as it has been in the past. I think that if we put together a good RFP, we might get some interest and certainly some additional revenue into the city.
We have to discuss it on the 1st, because I don't think there is anything built into the budget that discusses grant. I haven't seen it, but I don't think there's any money in there for.
Well, it would have to be something that kicked in after.
Yeah, right. We don't have anything in there for grant writers.
Like a percentage basis of a grant or
It would have to
something
be
of that
something
nature?
like that,
Mhm.
as opposed to.
And one other thing too, I'm a little concerned that we have no codification services. Lenore, you and I spoke a couple months ago. I think we're pretty far behind as far as codifying. We have until January, but we're also getting in a little bit of a pickle here with as far as getting our codes up to date. So we adopt all these ordinances, but they don't end up in the codes. We need to make sure that's on the radar screen. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Ann. That'll be a good meeting. Let's do agenda item number, it's 23, and it's agenda item number 13. But did you want something else on there?
There's a hand.
You have a hand up?
Yes.
What is,
I guess because this is an agenda.
On the agenda items for next time, if you remember, Attorney Beal was going to go to a seminar on signs.
Right.
And report the next council meeting on his time.
Okay.
So that would have been tonight.
Well, he will do that August 1st.
Yes, I just want to make sure you get
Yes,
on there
yes.
as an agenda item, not just a part of his report.
well, it's got to go back to P and Z too. It's got to go back to P and Z on the 9th. On, yeah, oh, okay, you're talking FOS. Okay, First Amendment.
Yes, that'll be there on the 1st.
We'll do it just like we did last time. He speaks and then the public can speak. We'll do it, thank you. Okay, appointment to boards. Lenore, finally to you, what do we got on appointment to boards?
Okay, I'll give a breakdown if you want me to do one at a time.
Yes.
And we'll go forward. Robert Dietl is willing to serve another term.
Okay, Board of Adjustment, liaison.
Well, how many people do we have going for that board? Let me catch up. Where are we? One regular position open, correct? And any other additional applicants?
You do have on the bottom applicants, it says none. On this, yeah, I don't see any.
There's none for Board of Adjustment.
I thought, didn't Owen put in his?
We had late ones.
Oh, okay, he wanted code enforcement, right?
I don't have an
Owen Collard is currently serving on the Comprehensive Planning Advisory Board, and he would like to have the opportunity to serve on the Code Enforcement Board.
Okay.
Or the Planning and Zoning Advisory Board.
Okay, so we
We
have,
also have an additional applicant, Pat Patton. She is willing to serve on the library board as her first choice, planning and zoning advisory board as her second choice, and code enforcement board as her third choice.
Thank you. So let's look at Bobby Dietl.
So we don't have an application.
We don't have an application for him.
It's just a reappointment. Is there a motion to reappoint?
I'll make a motion to reappoint Robert Dietl to another 3-year term to the Board of Adjustment, with the term ending July 16, 2015.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman French, a second by Vice Mayor Rhodes. Any public comment? Lenore?
Councilman Billman?
Yes.
Councilmember Deanan?
You know, I'm going to say no because we do have 2 alternates there that have been alternates for a while.
Vice Mayor Rhodes?
Yes.
Councilmember French?
Yes.
Mayor Bronte?
Yes. Next, Lenore, Code Enforcement.
There are currently 3 positions, and it looks like I've got a message that Catherine Conrad is not willing to serve another appointment. Mr. Gammon, at the last session that we actually had board appointments, did not respond to the email. I had not received his email, and he has indicated since then that he would be willing to serve another term on that board. And you have 2 people that I discussed earlier that are willing to be interviewed for consideration for the Code Enforcement Board, which is Owen Collard and Pat Patton.
So we're doing 1, correct?
Oh, Nora, I'm sorry. Could you say those names again for the people who would be willing to join?
Owen Collard is serving on the CPAB board. He is willing to be considered for the Code Enforcement Board, so he would step down on the Comprehensive Planning Advisory Board as an alternate to serve on the Code Enforcement Board. Pat Patton, she is also willing to serve on the Code Enforcement Board as her number 3 choice. She would prefer to serve on the Library Board if possible.
So Lenore, are we looking for 3 regular positions or 1?
3.
3.
So we will do 1 at a time.
Okay.
Well, a couple of these things, I just want to say, we have not interviewed, I mean, Owen goes from board to board, but
Right.
Pat
So, but I'm
Patton,
saying it would be into consideration. You could either pen an appointment or follow up with the other 2 positions at a later date.
okay,
With interviews,
because I want to make sure that if
Yeah.
we took like a none of us have interviewed her.
They would
Owen,
have to be interviewed first.
correct, okay. So,
I think based on Owen's qualifications and land use and zoning that
we could move.
he would be suitable for that board.
Okay, you can make that motion.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Owen Callard to the Code Enforcement Board.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilwoman Dean, second by Councilman French. Any public comment? Lenore?
I want to reiterate that he has already been interviewed, just for the public.
Yes,
sake.
yes,
Okay,
thank you.
Councilmember Billman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rhodes?
Yes.
Councilmember French?
Yes.
Councilmember Deanan?
Yes.
Mayor Bronte?
Yes, and that passes. The second one is Robert Gammon. Any nominations?
There's one more person. There's one more.
It looks like there's 2 more slots open.
Two more people applying.
Yeah, where's that one?
Who were the other? Pat Patton, CEB, I don't, and maybe someone else, I don't know.
We have no alternates. So don't-
I suggest that we ask Pat Patton to interview.
Yeah, we will. All these people will interview. We still have another spot open.
Well, I guess I'll make a motion that we reappoint Bert Gammon to the Code Enforcement Board.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilwoman Dean, second by Vice Mayor Rhodes to reappoint Robert Gammon to the CEB. Any public comment?
This would be interview.
Lenore?
Councilmember Billman?
No.
Councilmember French?
No.
Vice Mayor Rhodes?
Yes.
Councilmember Dean?
Yes.
Mayor Ferrante?
Yes, and the motion passes 3-2. There is one other CEB vacancy, and that we'll interview for that. Lenore, CPAB, we have no one?
Hold on 1 second, let me just...
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I don't mean to take your thunder.
Okay, currently, that would now be, we would now have 3 regular vacancies and 2 alternate vacancies on the Comprehensive Planning Advisory Board. It stipulates that you can have a maximum of 10 members, but no less than 6 regular members plus 2 alternates.
Oh, I'm on board.
And you currently have 7 regular members.
So we actually get, this board meets its requirements.
It meets its requirements at this time.
I say let's press.
Okay, next. Thank you. Library Board. I'm the liaison to the Library Board. I have not seen Michael that much.
He has not answered his phone, and he's not been present, and the director, Nancy Brown, has not wished for
Yes.
him to be reappointed as he's not been active.
Okay, I concur as the liaison.
It's my understanding that Pat Patton volunteers quite a bit at the library board, so I would suggest that having her again, you're interviewing her, and you can adjust that accordingly.
And we also have another applicant in
Exactly.
Carol, who is wanting to be considered for the Library Board. That's nice. Does the board wish to interview Carol Robichek?
Sure.
Okay. I didn't know if you wanted to interview it, just make an appointment. That board does not meet again until September. We can, it'll be okay. Lenore? Next, P and Z, it looks like nothing.
Amy Jackson has already been interviewed. However, you chose at that time not to appoint her. We now have a vacancy on the alternate position, and that is something that council could consider or
Okay.
in there.
I remember interviewing Amy Jackson. I know the P and Z board is down one alternate. She interviewed well.
Do you know which one's the alternate?
There's an alternate open on P and Z.
That was Amy Jackson?
She's not the alternate. She is the applicant, and we have interviewed her probably 4 months ago. P and Z is pretty new, and I think can use. They're doing very well, but have a tremendous turnaround. It may be good. Not sure how long they'll be in existence, depending on the referendum, but I would. Can't make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Amy Jackson as an alternate member to the Planning and Zoning Advisory Board.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman French, a second by Vice Mayor Rhodes. Any public comment? Lenore?
Councilmember Gilman,
Yes.
Councilmember Keenan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rhodes?
Yes.
Councilmember French?
Yes.
Mayor Fronte?
Yes, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And Lenore, I see Sampson's Island Park Committee, one. Oh, I don't see that.
Denise Page is currently out of town, so we weren't able to get a hold of her. We did leave a message, however. And so that, you could either choose to reappoint her or wait till the next meeting for consideration. You also have a member an applicant, Jim Spiegelhalter, who has also, would like to be considered for that.
Okay, but there's still.
There's still plenty of vacancies. You've got 2 regular
Yeah.
positions and 1 alternate.
I'd like to keep Denise Page on the Sampson Island Committee. They're a pretty tight-knit group. They do a lot of volunteer work. Most of them go out there at least monthly and do work and real involved. So I think it's important to keep her on there. So I'd like to make a motion to reappoint Denise Page to the Sampson Island Park Committee for a 2-year term ending August 1st, 2014.
I second that.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Rhodes, second by Councilman French. Any public comment? Lenore?
Councilmember Billman?
Yes.
Councilmember Dean?
Yes.
Councilmember French?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rhodes?
Yes.
Mayor Fronte?
Yes, and the motion passes unanimously. Lenore, I think we probably have to set up an interviews.
Yeah.
Are we going to do pictures on the first? Is that at 5:45? Are we going to have? Oh, you won't be here. So no pictures on the first. We can do.
Real quick question, though. Wasn't there going to be a possibility of 4:30
Yes.
meeting?
Meeting.
There is. So we can't schedule it for August 1st then, for the interview process. We'll go with the later date.
Okay. Is that meeting at 4:30 because it will take an hour and a half?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Okay. All right.
I think it just depends on how many questions council has and so on.
So the next date would be August 15th, if that's acceptable with council.
A date could be, just throwing it out there, August 8th. That is a budget meeting. Not sure how long that will be. The 15th might be long. I mean, we could do the 8th or the 15th.
The 8th will be long.
Okay, we'll do the 15th.
For pictures? For the interviews?
Well, we could do pictures on the 8th.
Yeah.
And the interviews on the 15th.
There you go.
How's that? Greg, you going to be available for those, do you think? 8th and 15th? Okay, he'll be here. He's there. Okay, Lenore, can we do that? We'll have pictures on the 8th, interviews on the 15th. All right, he knows it's almost over. Okay, agenda item. Thank you very much for those board appointments, everyone. And Lenore, thank you for that hard work on that. I know that we haven't done that in a while. Number 14 is adoption of minutes from 2 regular meetings and a special meeting. Has anybody been on a sub?
That's what it is.
Okay, I need a motion for the minutes.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the minutes from the council meetings from May 16th, June 6th, and June 12th. Regular meeting, and special meeting as written.
Yes, sir.
We can hear you. We're still here. We have a motion by the Vice Mayor to adopt the minutes as published.
I concur.
Okay, I have a motion by Vice Mayor Rhodes, second by Councilman Billman. Lenore?
Councilmember Dean?
Yes.
Councilmember French?
Yes.
Councilmember Billman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rhodes?
Yes.
Mayor Fronte?
Yes, and the motion passes unanimously. We have no other business except to make sure that you, Friday is a nice party And we're going to talk about the resolution. I think Mike has at least 13 people, friends coming, family coming, so it'll be a nice thing. I'm not sure what we're eating, but it'll be hot dogs, but it'll be great. So please, if you need a ticket, get a ticket, and we'll see everybody on Friday. Anything else? Thank you very much, and thank you all for staying. Meeting's adjourned.